Chapter 1870. Are you sure you weren't possessed by something? Gu Min clicked her tongue in wonder. The foppish young master of the past had actually turned over a new leaf. Looking at his temperament now, he really had the air of a peerless young master. If she hadn't seen it with her own eyes, she would have thought that Lu Shi had been possessed by something. Was this the power of love? Lu Shi didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He knew that Gu Min had a mental problem, but he didn't expect it to be so serious. People said that she was one of the two beauties, but in fact, she wasn't what she appeared to be. She pretended to be in front of others, but she was her real self. Well, he should be the inside. Ordinary people would praise him as a genius when they heard that he had turned over a new leaf. She was the only one who suspected that she had been replaced. Of course not. Lu Shi looked at her, and his eyes softened. Gu Min got goosebumps. Don't look at me like that. I'm not used to it, Gu Min said. Don't tell me that you still want to marry me. Lu Shi's eyes dimmed and he said helplessly, why aren't you moved? Gu Min was an honest person. She didn't want to drag Lu Shi down, not to mention that he had turned over a new leaf. It was too green tea to waste his youth. How should I put it? It's not that I'm not moved. Gu Min tried to save Lu Shi's face and got to the point. Many people make verbal promises, but very few actually put them into practice. You've changed so much in 2 years. It shows that you've really made up your mind. Shamelessly speaking, I was actually quite pleased with myself. But I can't force myself to accept someone I don't like. Gu Min wasn't a love brain, but she wasn't a girl who lacked love. If she were to get married, she would definitely find a man she liked under the premise that their families were of equal status. Anyone could have been considered, but Lu Shi was the only one who was out of the picture. He was the father of Emperor Chen. He should marry Gu Zhen and give birth to the future ruler of the world. Gu Min didn't want to ruin the course of history for personal feelings. Regardless of Emperor Chen's relationship, Gu Zhen was Gu Min's stepsister. Lu Shi was her brother-in-law. How could an older sister fight for her brother-in-law? Therefore, Gu Min was moved to reject it. Lu Shi's eyes dimmed, but he wasn't too surprised. He could feel whether Gu Min liked him or not. May I know the reason? His first love, which he had fallen in love with because he was blind, had died prematurely. He should at least let him die knowing. There are 3 reasons. Gu Min deliberated and said, first, marriage is about matching families. Between you and me. Even if I agree, my parents won't agree. The outcome was already decided, so why waste energy struggling? Second, I always thought that you liked little Zhen and treated you as a brother-in-law, but you said you liked me. Thirdly, I really don't know what you like about me. Lu Shi was not surprised by the first reason. He was only the second son of the Lu family in Hejin County. It was a bit whimsical for him to marry the daughter of the Gu family. However, what the hell was with the second and third reasons? Lu Shi's good temper, which he had cultivated for 2 years, was broken in an instant. He almost couldn't help but shake Gu Min's head to see if it was filled with water. How old is the Xiaozhen you're talking about? Lu Shi couldn't help but ridicule. That girl is so cunning. Who would like her? Gu Min glared at Lu Shi and waved her sword in front of his eyes. You're saying I'm stupid? Also, little Zhen is such a simple girl. How could she be so cunning? Lu Shi was speechless. This was a standard suicide question. No, you're not stupid. A strong desire to survive prompted Lu Shi to choose to change the topic. He said, well, I'm blind. He was really blind to like Gu Min. Wasn't it enough to be abused once? He wanted to marry her and be abused for the rest of his life. Gu Min had saved him from the back of a frightened horse. Since then, he had liked her. Most likely, there was something wrong with his heart. This time, it was Gu Min's turn to be speechless. The two of them sat opposite each other, staring at each other. It was quite a bit like enemies seeing each other. In the end, Gu Min was the first to retreat. When she left, Lu Shi called out to her and said, the reasons you mentioned, if I can overcome them one by one, will you be willing to marry me? Gu Min didn't answer, but she ridiculed Lu Shi behind Xia Qian's back. That guy won't shed a tear until he sees the coffin. I don't have much interaction with him. I really don't know why he likes me so much. She looked like she couldn't bear to be disturbed. Her mental age was old enough to be called an old auntie. She really couldn't bear to kiss the young Lu Shi. Xia Qian said, "You have to be careful. Lu Shi is not a righteous person. I'm afraid he will use dirty tricks." He didn't know why he couldn't really like Lu Shi. He always felt that the guy wore many layers of fake masks. However, everyone else was praising Lu Shi, which made Xia Qian a little conflicted. Gu Min sneered. Come on, even if he turned over a new leaf, he's still the same cowardly look. He's still a teenager. Xia Qian looked at Gu Min suspiciously from the corner of his eyes. You have some misunderstanding about the term teenager. Gu Min said, what misunderstanding can there be? Xia Qian said, normally, when an aristocrat is Lu Shi's age, the matriarch will help arrange a maid who knows how to deal with people. According to the current social atmosphere, Lu Shi was considered a man, but Gu Min, who was younger than him, looked at him with the eyes of a boy. In Gu Min's mind, a melodramatic drama she had watched many years ago immediately appeared. Are you saying that Lu Shi will be audacious enough to take advantage of me and then send people to catch me in the act? Then I will have no choice but to marry him? Xia Qian couldn't help but say something good for the poor Lu Shi. Even though Lu Shi is not a righteous person, he is not a vicious person who would use such treacherous tricks. Moreover, you are a noble daughter of the Gu family. Even if you have a lover before marriage, your husband's family won't say anything. The current atmosphere was like this. The noble daughters of aristocrats were a little more open-minded. It was not a big deal to have a close man before marriage. Even if they were caught in the act, their reputation would at most be a little worse, but it would not be so bad that they had to marry Lu Shi. Gu Min said, TSK, then what am I worried about? After Gu Min left, Lu Shi, who was in the private room next door, was so angry that he crushed the teacup in his hand. He knew that he had a bad impression of Gu Min, but he never thought it would be to this extent. However, he loved her to the core and couldn't leave her. Lu Shi didn't know what he did wrong to make Gu Min hate him for so many years. What a loser. In his anger, Lu Shi swept the teacup on the table clean and smashed it with a clatter. Since you said it and slandered me like this, then you really can't blame me. He couldn't bear this bad reputation for nothing. Lu Shi cracked his knuckles. His originally clear eyes seemed to be filled with a deep pool with undercurrents surging under the pool. In the eyes of outsiders, Lu Shi's progress in the past few years could be considered to have skyrocketed, but marrying Gu Min was still wishful thinking. However, Lu Shi knew that it was not difficult to achieve this. Therefore, when the Gu family agreed to the Lu family's marriage proposal, their jaws dropped in shock. Gu Min was the most shocked. How was this possible? If she married Lu Shi, what would happen to Lu Shi and Gu Zhen's daughter, Empress Chen? According to historical inertia, could it be that after marriage, the sister-in-law and brother-in-law would have an affair and secretly have a child together? Did they really think that Gu Min was a hat weaver? Father, mother, I can't agree to this marriage. Gu Min voted against it. Only then did she realize that her parents looked a little unwilling. Her mother looked even more depressed. Lu Shi. Lu Zhongqing, get out here. Do you want to live or not? Gu Min asked the reason and was burning with anger. She carried her sword and visited the place where Lu Shi was staying at night to let him know why flowers were so red. Lu Shi was reading hard with a candle lit. He had maintained this habit for 2 or 3 years. Every day, he would study until late at night before he could sleep. He was extremely sleepy. The image of Gu Min marrying someone else appeared in his mind and he suddenly woke up. He was enlightened 7 or 8 years later than normal people. If he wanted to catch up or even surpass them, he had to put in more effort. Therefore, he only slept for 4 hours a day. Knowing that the Gu family had agreed to the marriage proposal, Lu Shi was in a good mood. He read 2 more books and coincidentally ran into Gu Min, if someone saw us having a secret rendezvous here in the middle of the night, I'm afraid they wouldn't be able to explain themselves. Lu Shi got up and opened the window for her. He watched her jump in with her sword and turned around to pour a cup of tea for her. Drink some tea to calm down. Don't get angry. Gu Min took the tea and drank it in one gulp. Her eyes were wide open. You're such a despicable person. Lu Shi blinked innocently. How am I a despicable person? Gu Min said, you deceived my parents with the help of a charlatan and coaxed them into agreeing to this marriage. Don't you feel guilty? Lu Shi's solution was to ask a master to testify. He expressed his determination to his future parents-in-law and promised them a lot of bargaining chips. Only then did he manage to persuade them to agree. When Gu Min heard this, her first reaction was that Lu Shi was itching for a beating again. Deceived? Lu Shi said, Master Liaochen of Hejian, primogenitor Xianhui of Jingyang, and Lord Daoist Xuan of Hanqing can all testify. One master was definitely not enough, so Lu Shi invited a few more. Coincidentally, Gu Min's fate was special. Without Lu Shi's persuasion, the three masters all gave Lu Shi the instructions he wanted. Gu Min was still very angry. She wanted to beat Lu Shi up. I like you. That is the love between a man and a woman. Why don't you understand? Gu Min said, you and I are not fated. Lu Shi's face darkened. He asked her, then who should I be fated with? Gu Zhen. You are the one I like. Why do you always use Gu Zhen as a shield? You should have let me fall to my death. Who would have thought that you would save me? Now I can't let go of you. Gu Min threw her sword on the ground. Lu Shi said, I've wanted to ask you for a long time. Who do you see through me? Gu Min was shocked. She asked, what? Lu Shi said, you see someone else through me. We've known each other since we were young. Although I was naughty for a few years, I studied hard and tried to improve myself. My relatives around me are happy, but you? You seem to think that I can't change. You always look at me with disgust that I don't understand. Ask yourself. Other than the offense I made when we first met, I apologize to you afterward. The impact shouldn't be so deep. These words were, of course, half-truths. Lu Shi was only trying to deceive Gu Min. Who would have thought that he would find out part of the truth? Gu Min said, after I came back, I forgot what happened in the past, but I vaguely remembered something. In the following years, I had many strange dreams. In the dream, there was a man named Lu Shi. He was my brother-in-law. He was a rotten man. My sister was heartbroken by him. She came home many times to complain to me. I valued my sister so much. How could I be nice to such a man? Lu Shi was shocked to hear that. Because of this dream, I was wrongly treated by you for years? Gu Min's previous words were all made up. They were half-truths. In fact, she wanted Lu Shi to give up on breaking off the engagement. She felt a little guilty. I was young at that time. How could I distinguish between reality and dreams? I only felt that you were exactly the same as that despicable Lu Shi. I hated him because of him. A dream is a dream, and reality is reality. Am I that kind of person? Lu Shi suddenly felt wronged. He knew Gu Min's temperament. She had always been open to coaxing but not coercion. If you were unreasonable to her, she could be even more unreasonable. If you softened to her, she couldn't be tough. You're being unfair. As expected, Gu Min's heart softened. She couldn't bear to see the cute boy's pitiful eyes. Even though she knew that Lu Shi was a scumbag in history, she still couldn't harden her heart. Can't you give me a chance? Lu Shi tried to persuade Gu Min, you and I are childhood friends. We know each other very well. When we get married in the future, you can do whatever you want. If you marry the son of an unfamiliar rich man, I'm afraid you won't be so free and easy. Gu Min was unmoved. She would rather be single for the rest of her life than mess up history and prevent her idol from being born. You don't understand. I have my own reasons. Gu Min was very depressed, but she couldn't reveal the truth. She was depressed. Lu Shi pouted and said, "Do you have someone you like? Like Xie Qian? I heard that you're close to him." Gu Min sneered and said sarcastically, "Do I look like someone who likes to raise a son?" Lu Shi was surprised. A son? Xia Shaohe would be furious if he knew. "I treat you like a brother and sister. How dare you want to be my mother? You're the same. You haven't even grown your pubic hair and you still want to marry me." Lu Shi rolled his eyes and pretended to untie his belt. Gu Min was so scared that she jumped up from the ground and jumped 3 feet high. "What are you doing?" Lu Shi looked like he was going all out. "I want you to see if my pubic hair is fully grown." Gu Min couldn't help but spit out a mouthful of saliva when she was being teased by a teenage boy. Pfft! Perverted pervert. After being interrupted by Lu Shi, Gu Min jumped through the window and left. She had forgotten the real purpose of her visit that night. Lu Shi hadn't agreed to break off the engagement. When Gu Min came back to her senses, she slapped her forehead and was very depressed. Lu Shi was an attentive person. From time to time, he would visit his future father-in-law and successfully coax the 2 unwilling elders to be happy. Gu Min gritted her teeth when she saw the look of a young man in love. "I don't believe that a little kid knows anything about feelings." Gu Min ran away from home to drink with Xie Qian again. She couldn't help but complain about Lu Shi's strange behavior to her boyfriend. "I don't have much contact with him. I really don't know why he has so many admirers. He doesn't sound reliable." Xie Qian said sarcastically, "You're the one who's unreliable." Gu Min said innocently, "What about me?" Xie Qian shook his head. Gu Min probably didn't know that there were many people who secretly admired her. It was a scourge to have half a man and half a woman. Scholars held poetry gatherings. Not only would there be a thesis segment, but there would also be a martial arts competition. Gu Min would always come out on top. The point was that she liked to wear men's clothes when she attended the gatherings. She looked handsome, and she was much more attractive than those scholars who were showy but not practical. Nowadays, men were not the only ones who were gay. Women also liked to sharpen their glasses. As far as Xie Qian knew, there were indeed many blind noble ladies who fell in love with Gu Min. However, Gu Min was a straight woman. She was the model of being single based on her ability. Even Lu Shi, who was so passionate and unrestrained, had his head broken in front of her. Not to mention those reserved women. Thinking of this, Xie Qian said, "Both families have made it clear. Why don't you try to accept Lu Shi, even though he's not that great?" Gu Min regretted having such a bad friend. "He's not that great, yet you're persuading me to accept him. Xie Shaohe, you've changed." Gu Min thought that she could make Lu Shi back off, but she didn't expect that she would be the first to give in. The story had to start from the old house fire. It was a hot summer with little rain. This year, Langya County was much hotter than in previous years. The rivers outside the city had dried up. Ancient buildings were mainly made of wood. Fires were easy to happen in this season. On this day, Gu Min and a few of her girlfriends held a lychee banquet at the old house. The lychees at the banquet were late-ripening varieties. They had small seeds and a lot of pulp. They were placed in the well water. They were cold and sweet. There were more lychees this year. Gu Min sent people to pick a few more baskets for her girlfriends to bring back. She also got someone to bring a basket for Lu Shi. "Sister, you said that you have no feelings for Lu Zhongqing. It's obvious that you put him at the top of your heart." Gu Min seemed to have cultivated Gu Jin's sly character. Not only was she cheerful, but she also became bolder. She even dared to tease her sister. Gu Min looked at Gu Zhen with a helpless expression. This silly girl. The emperor in her life was about to become her brother-in-law, but she could still laugh. Gu Min was worried to death. If it wasn't for the Gu family's many years of upbringing and the fact that running away from marriage would damage the family's reputation, she would have run away and broken the contract. Gu Zhen said again, this Lu Zhongqing is really becoming more and more promising. A few days ago, a few great scholars gave him high praise. Gu Min pushed the lychee away in annoyance and stuffed the pulp into Gu Zhen's mouth. She said angrily, so many delicious things can't stop your mouth. Are you my sister or Lu Shi's sister? You put in good words for him every day. How many red seals did he give you? Gu Zhen covered her handkerchief and smiled. Sister, I'm happy that you can find Liangshu. What's there to be happy about? Gu Min said. This Lu Shi. I originally wanted to tell him to you, but now he's ruined it. Gu Zhen was stunned when she heard that, as if she had been petrified. Gu Min was also open-minded. Or rather, she had raised Gu Zhen as her daughter all these years and did not have her guard up. Back then, I asked an expert to read his horoscope. The expert said that he had a golden marriage with you. I didn't agree at first. After all, he's a playboy. Who would be willing to push a sister into the fire pit? Gu Min sighed and nagged, not noticing Gu Zhen's complicated expression. After that, Lu Shi made up his mind to change for the better. A prodigal son turning over is considered precious. Now that he's making progress, he's worthy of my sister. Gu Zhen then said with a pale face, Sister, what are you talking about? He's my sister's future brother-in-law. Gu Min said, that's why I said Lu Shi is a troublemaker. Can't he like a real couple? Why does he have to keep an eye on me? Unbeknownst to him, Gu Zhen had secretly twisted her handkerchief into a ball. She had long urged Gu Min and Lu Shi to get close to each other and repeatedly helped Lu Shi. Naturally, she had her own selfish motives. Who would have thought that Lu Shi would turn over a new leaf? Now, other than his poor background, he was considered top-notch among his peers in other aspects. Of course, the current Lu Shi was more than enough to be a match for her, the daughter of a concubine. However, Lu Shi and Gu Min were engaged. Sister, you really don't like Lu Zhongqing? Gu Zhen asked her awkwardly. If that's the case, why don't you make it clear? Gu Min rolled her eyes inelegantly and sighed. How did I not make it clear? But Lu Shi is a person who won't turn back unless he hits a brick wall. Now that father and mother have agreed to the marriage, it's impossible to break it off easily. Otherwise, the two families will be completely ashamed and become enemies. How many times had she rejected him righteously? She had even said something as ridiculous as, it's useless for you to have my body, you can't have my heart. In the end, Lu Shi was even more mischievous. Humph, what do I want your heart for? I just want your body. Pfft. Pervert. In order to put the historical couple, Lu Shi and Gu Zhen together, she had really used all her strength. Gu Min sighed. Sister, think of another way, she was just a cannon fodder who didn't even have a name in history, standing between Emperor Chen's parents. She was really afraid that she would die young due to historical inertia. Although Professor Lu Shi's textual research said that Gu Min was Emperor Chen's mother, how could she believe something that the royal family hadn't acknowledged? In the afternoon, she had solemnly vowed to make Lu Shi give up early, but at night, she had slapped him in the face. Gu Min hadn't been sleeping well recently. She had to drink some sleep aid to calm her mind, so she slept more soundly in the second half of the night. Who knew that an accident would happen at this time? There's a fire. A maid was paying respects to the ancestors in the middle of the night. Because she was worried that she would be caught, she left in a hurry after the ceremony and didn't extinguish the lit incense. However, it was those few incense sticks that accidentally ignited the firewood that was piled up. Gu Min's courtyard was the closest, so she was the first to suffer. Coincidentally, there was the night wind to help the fire burn, so the fire was out of control. Lu Shi heard the commotion and rushed over. The first thing he did was ask about Gu Min's whereabouts. Only then did everyone realize that she wasn't there. You. How did you serve the First Lady? Lu Shi was almost angered to death by these maids. For so many years, Gu Min hadn't blushed at the maids. She rewarded them from time to time and never said a harsh word. How could there be such a good master in the world? These ingrates were good. They only cared about themselves and didn't even know that the First Lady hadn't rushed out of the fire. Lu Shi rudely snatched the thin blanket and the bucket of water from the servant's hands. He then drenched himself from head to toe and rushed in without another word. At this time, the fire burned half the sky red. Everyone could only see the orange flames that shot up into the sky. For some reason, Lu Shi had a strong thought. He wouldn't die if he rushed in, and Gu Min would definitely still be alive. Speaking of which, it was strange that Gu Min was still sleeping well. The area around her bed hadn't completely ignited. They're all asleep now. Lu Shi couldn't care less about being angry. He wrapped Gu Min in the wet blanket and carried her by the waist. Perhaps it was because the noise was too loud, Gu Min slowly woke up. She was shocked by the scene around her. Lu Zhongqing. Ahem. Don't talk. The fire was burning fiercely, but the two of them were extremely lucky and managed to escape from the King of Hell. As soon as they rushed out, the beam that was entangled by the flames couldn't bear the burden and fell down. If the two of them had been one step slower, they would have been crushed by the beam and buried in the sea of fire. It took Gu Min a long time to wake up from the after-effects of the calming soup. She looked at the boudoir in the sea of fire, her face pale. Just now, she was almost burned to death in her sleep. She had been in the ancient times for so many years, but it was the first time she had encountered such a big fire. It just had to be 1 month after her engagement with Lu Shi. Could it be, was history trying to correct her, the bug who had interfered with Emperor Chen's parents? Gu Min trembled in fear. Lu Shi didn't care about his embarrassment and hugged her tightly, comforting her with a gentle voice. Lu Zhongqing, did you want to die just now? Gu Min suppressed the guesses and fear in her heart. She turned her head and saw that half of Lu Shi's long hair was burnt. His sleeves and clothes were also burned clean by the flames. She felt a myriad of emotions in her heart and couldn't help but say, "You almost died. If I didn't go in, you would have really died." Lu Shi used his hand to extinguish the flames at the end of his hair and smiled bitterly. So what if I die? At least I'll die with you. At least I'll fulfill my wish. I don't ask to be born on the same day of the same month and year, but I ask to die on the same day of the same month and year. Gu Min swallowed the words that almost slipped out of her mouth. She gritted her teeth and said, "It's all because of you." Lu Shi was very innocent. What does this have to do with me? Gu Min felt wronged. If I ruin your marriage, I'll be struck by lightning. This is retribution. What you said is somewhat reasonable. Lu Shi nodded in agreement. Then if you marry me and complete this marriage, God won't make things difficult for you. You are my God's match. Gu Min was angry. I'm being serious with you, and you're still being naughty. She moved to another courtyard after her boudoir was burned down by the fire. It had been a few days since the fire, but she still couldn't get rid of the after-effects of the incident. Instead, she fell deeper and deeper into it. She couldn't concentrate, and Lu Shi's solemn words often rang in her ears. It made her heart beat erratically. Occasionally, she couldn't help but blush. She inexplicably felt that Lu Shi was actually a little handsome. Pfft! Who's God's match with this pervert? Even though the outside world had a lot of praise for Lu Shi, in Gu Min's eyes, he was still a steady and playboy who deserved to be beaten and scolded. What kind of gentleman was as gentle as jade? It was all an illusion. Lu Shi's mouth was still annoying and poisonous. Every time, it could make people half dead. In order to make Lu Shi completely give up, Gu Min simply asked him to go to the Shangfu Temple in Hejin County to pay a visit to Master Liaochen. Master Liaochen was a real swindler, and Gu Min and he could be considered friends despite the difference in age. He also vaguely guessed her secret, so Gu Min was very relaxed in befriending him. She didn't have to worry about exposing herself one day. Lu Shi was taken to the side by the novice monk to play with the mud. Gu Min looked distressed as she told her friend about her difficulties. Lu Zhongqing, that stinking shameless guy, actually used your name to deceive my parents and coaxed them into agreeing to the marriage. I'm so worried. I'd rather tear down 10 temples than ruin a marriage. Gu Min used both of her fingers to make a 10 sign and said gloomily, according to what I know, Lu Shi should be fated with my stepsister. But in the end, he fell for me. Is it because I've affected history? Master Liaochen twirled his Buddhist beads and smiled as he quietly listened to his young friend's worries. Gu Min frowned awkwardly. If these two don't have TSK, don't just laugh. Think about it carefully. Where should I get an Emperor Chen who can unify the 9 states to compensate the people of the world? If history changes because of this, I'll be a sinner. Liaochen said, isn't it good to let nature take its course? Gu Min said solemnly, no, if Emperor Chen doesn't come into being, according to the research of our historians, I'm afraid it will take another 1,000 years before we can enter that kind of prosperous Taiping. The Jiang dynasty was established for more than 300 years, and it was peaceful for more than 300 years. According to the situation of my era, as long as the country doesn't court disaster, the peace can continue for a long time. If history changes, who knows how many more people will die? Liaochen said, according to my understanding of you, you also have feelings for almsgiver Lu, even if you don't realize it, that's not important. Gu Min waved her hand and said, what's so great about love? How can it be compared to the trend of the world? She was a little distraught. Lu Shi kept pestering her, but she wasn't cold-hearted. She was more or less tempted, but she couldn't be tempted. In the end, she could only blame Lu Shi for not seducing her. Wouldn't it be better to obediently follow history and be the father of Emperor Chen? Gu Min suddenly thought of something and said gloomily, it's okay if you don't talk about this, but I get angry when you mention it. How can you help Lu Zhongqing testify and say that he and I are fated to be married? If the two of us don't work out, I'm afraid I won't live long. My parents were fooled by this. Liaochen smiled. A monk doesn't lie. Gu Min sneered. All right, you've lied in front of me many times. Your credibility is ruined. I don't believe a single punctuation. The two of them looked at each other quietly. Gu Min's smile faded, but Liaochen was still smiling. Don't lie to me. Gu Min's face turned pale. Liaochen said, I never lie. Perhaps, the history you know is not the whole picture. Impossible, the royal family has never acknowledged that Emperor Chen's mother is someone else. Almsgiver Lu came to me, and I have secretly calculated for the two of you. There is indeed a fated marriage, Liaochen said. A long time ago, you said that Lu Shi's daughter has the potential to ascend to the throne. I have also calculated, and Lu Shi does have this fortune. Gu Min was confused by his words. Cut it short and simplify. You know I'm not as smart as you. Liaochen said, Ziwei's descent is fate. It will come. Why don't you let nature take its course? Gu Min said, are you saying that I'm overthinking? Liaochen stared at her, and Gu Min was terrified by his stare. Liaochen speculated, the Emperor Chen you mentioned is probably the same as you. He had carefully calculated Lu Shi's fate with women, and there was nothing special about him. Later, Liaochen visited another friend in private, and his friend calculated that the Emperor's star of Ziwei was moving. Calculating the years, it was probably when Lu Shi's daughter was 11 or 12 years old. Combining this with Gu Min's special case, Liaochen couldn't help but think. Perhaps, Emperor Chen was not born in this realm, but came from another world. There are indeed people on the internet who speculated that Emperor Chen was a transmigrator. Gu Min was shocked at first, then immediately widened her eyes. She said, after all, according to the information provided by the imperial family, Emperor Chen was a nobody among the noble ladies before she was 12 years old. After she turned 12, she suddenly had unparalleled martial arts, and her temperament changed drastically. She killed people like she was killing chickens. Even if there was an unofficial history saying that she met an immortal by chance, there shouldn't be such a drastic change. Liaochen, you mean? Emperor Chen doesn't care who her parents are, and she will come when she is supposed to? If she really was a transmigrator, it really had nothing to do with who her parents were. Liaochen said, she and Lu Shi are fated to be father and daughter. In other words, a change of mother wouldn't have much effect on Emperor Chen's descent, as long as the father wasn't the old man next door. Gu Min was speechless. Her worldview was shattered. Liao Chen laughed. This matter concerns the future of the world, and the fate of Ziwei. Please consider it carefully. Gu Min couldn't help but support her chin. Are you sure you didn't collude with Lu Shi to lie to me? A monk doesn't lie. Gu Min said, if that's the case, it's not that I can't give Lu Shi a chance. It's better to find someone familiar and easier to bully so that I can live comfortably. But when I think about how Lu Shi was supposed to be my brother-in-law, I can't get over it. Liao Chen said helplessly, how do you know that history is definitely true? Gu Min asked in surprise, what do you mean? Liao Chen said, Lu Shi and Gu Zhen were indeed fated to be husband and wife, but the two of them were not fated to have children, including those who were born and those who were not. Although my skills are shallow, I can still calculate this. If that's the case, how can you be sure that the Emperor Qin you know is Gu Zhen's daughter? Gu Min's face turned pale after hearing this. Liao Chen lightly threw another bomb at her. I remember you said that the later generations found that the time of Emperor Chen's birth and Gu Zhen's marriage to Lu Shi were different. This was also one of the strong pieces of evidence for the scholar to overturn that Gu Zhen was the birth mother. Gu Min frowned. I did say that, but other than the fact that Emperor Chen's mother wasn't Gu Zhen, there was another inference. The unofficial history said that Gu Zhen was discontented after being widowed and had a rendezvous with a strange man. That was why she married Lu Shi with the child in her womb. Liao Chen laughed. I also said that the child should be Lu Shi's bloodline. Then, Gu Min's face turned pale when she heard this. Then, the child's birth mother was someone else. Even if Gu Min was slow to react, she still understood the meaning behind Master Liao Chen's words. At this moment, Gu Min suddenly remembered the details before she transmigrated. When she taught Lu Shi that Emperor Chen's birth mother was Gu Min, she curiously went online to search for information about Gu Min. There were very few records, and the few sentences were obtained from unofficial history inscriptions and miscellaneous discussions. According to these written records, the historical Gu Min had congenital dementia. According to Professor Lu Shi's research, congenital dementia was due to being born too late, resulting in a lack of oxygen in the womb and abnormal brain development. In addition, Gu Min's year of death was uncertain, but it was definitely after the birth of Emperor Chen and before Gu Zhen married Lu Shi. Time was so sensitive, Gu Min suddenly felt very frightened when she thought about it. Liao Chen said, history is history, but people are in the present. Donor, you must not be affected by it. Gu Min smiled bitterly, let me think about it. Liao Chen asked her curiously, if Emperor Chen's mother was really you, what would you do? What else can I do? I'll just take it one step at a time. Most people will still follow the course of history. After all, that future is really beautiful. I hope it will come as soon as possible, so that more people can enjoy that kind of happiness. I've lived in this era for so many years, and with every day that passes, the thoughts in my mind become stronger, Gu Min said, but, Lu Shi. I really don't know how to treat him. Even if she had a good impression of him, Gu Min felt uncomfortable when she thought of the things that Lu Shi had done in history. Logic told her that she should treat him differently, but she couldn't do it emotionally. At that moment, she was very conflicted. After saying goodbye to Liao Chen, Gu Min was still a little distracted. Lu Shi was angry when he saw her and couldn't help but grab her wrist and drag her to the backyard of the temple. The backyard was filled with pine and cypress trees, full of lush greenery. The cicadas were noisy, but it couldn't cover up Lu Shi's anger and sadness at that moment. Gu Min, do you have a heart or not? Gu Min's emotions were in a mess, and the cicadas around her made her even more upset. She said angrily, how am I not having a heart? Lu Shi angrily pressed her hand against his chest and questioned, if you have a heart, why did you force his actions on me for the man in your dreams? I'm innocent. Did this heart ever tell you who Lu Zhongqing likes? In the face of such a strong and straightforward confession, even Gu Min, who had lived 2 lives, couldn't handle it, not to mention that she had some feelings for Lu Shi. Her cheeks were dyed red, and she tried hard to withdraw her hand, but Lu Shi wouldn't let go. He would rather wrestle with her than let go. Gu Min tried a few times, but her wrist was still swollen from Lu Shi's grip, and he still wouldn't let go. She was so angry that she scolded him. Lu Zhongqing, do you want to break my hand? I also want to break your leg. Lu Shi was silent for a moment, then suddenly clenched his teeth and said, then you can't leave. Gu Min secretly cursed. Lu Zhongqing didn't walk the path of a scumbag, but instead ran in the direction of a sickly person. A sickly person was a sickly person, but not her. You can't beat me. Gu Min cruelly exposed the truth. Not to mention Lu Zhongqing, even the world's top generals could at most fight her to a draw. Even though she didn't know the origin of Emperor Chen's body-refining technique, it was indeed very strong and abnormal. There were even people on the internet who guessed that Emperor Chen came from a galaxy with a high civilization, and by chance, he had transmigrated to the ancient times, which perfectly explained all the doubts left in history. Of course, these guesses had no basis, and the imperial family had never commented on them. After Gu Min had transmigrated, she felt that the possibility of Emperor Chen being a transmigrator was very high. Perhaps, she could do something for him. Then kill me, or else I won't let go. Lu Shi almost threw caution to the wind. We're already engaged. If you still won't marry me, then you can marry someone else. Just you wait, I'll do whatever it takes to make you a widow for the rest of your life. K, Lu Zhongqing's sickness was not light at all. Who taught you to say this? He was such a good kid, but how could he be so sickly and sickly? You forced me. Lu Shi said confidently, but he felt wronged. Why did you sentence me to death because of a person in my dream? You know that I admire you, like you, and that's why you hurt me with this. What did I do wrong? Gu Min had always been amenable to coaxing, but not coercion. If Lu Shi was tough, she would fight back, but if he was weak, Gu Min would soften. After so many years, Lu Shi had long figured out her routine. This isn't just. Gu Min opened her mouth to explain, but accidentally met Lu Shi's bloodshot and watery eyes. She swallowed her words and was stunned for a while. She said angrily, "What are you looking at? Go home. Go and be your bridegroom." Gu Min didn't know what kind of image Lu Shi had in history besides being labeled as a scumbag, but she knew that Lu Shi was stubborn and would do what he said. If she didn't take in this little vixen who was constantly on the verge of being blackened, he would really make her a widow for the rest of her life. Since marrying Lu Shi wouldn't affect the future of Emperor Chen, and she was a little interested in him, she might as well let it be. The only person she owed was Gu Zhen. She would think of a way to make it up to her in the future. But, Master Liaochen's words made her very concerned. If Lu Shi and Gu Zhen were destined to be husband and wife, and Gu Min married Lu Shi, under what circumstances would Lu Shi marry Gu Zhen? Would it really be like the official history, where Lu Shi was not content with his wife and colluded with his widowed sister-in-law? The two of them worked together to plant a green grassland on Gu Min's head, and they even dared to herd sheep and ride horses on it. Lu Shi was ready to give up everything he had. He didn't expect Gu Min to change her mind at the last minute, which shocked him. Gu Min lifted her feet to leave, but found Lu Shi still standing in the same spot. Are you planning to stand in the backyard of the temple and turn into a stone to watch your wife? She pulled her hand, and Lu Shi followed her stupidly. When she walked, he walked, and when she stopped, he stopped as well. He stood there as if he had lost his soul. Are you really stupid? Gu Min murmured. Lu Shi was so nervous that he didn't even know where to put his hands. Gu Min was speechless. Lu Shi was really good at acting. Just a moment ago, he had shamelessly turned into a sick person and threatened her, but now he had changed his personality and turned into a shy, innocent boy. You really don't have a split personality? Lu Shi took a long time to recover from his ecstasy and asked in surprise, "What is a split personality?" Crazy. Maybe there is, but it's all because of you. Lu Shi pouted. One moment you are heartless, and the next moment you give people hope, Gu Min chuckled. Then I'll continue to be heartless. No, if you are heartless, you might as well stab me to death with a sword. Lu Shi hugged her from behind and rested his chin on her shoulder. Of course, even if I die, I will turn into a ghost. If you dare to marry someone, I will dare to make you a widow for the rest of your life. Gu Min was speechless. What the F***? Big brother, how much hatred do you have? Genius 1 second to remember website. Mobile version. Chapter 1871. Gu Min had transmigrated for so many years, but she had never thought that she would marry the scumbag Lu Shi. She was very nervous before the marriage, but after the marriage, she felt that Lu Shi was not a good-for-nothing. He could be a decent man if he was trained well. Before the marriage, Lu Shi was barely suitable to be a boyfriend, but he was still a distance away from being a qualified husband. For her own future, she naturally had to train him well. For example, correcting bad habits, quitting smoking, drinking, and eating too much. He also had to learn martial arts from her to strengthen his body. Why should I learn this? Lu Shi didn't understand. Those weird martial arts movements were really shameful. Every morning before dawn, he had to wake up to exercise, which was even more painful for him. He hadn't been so tired in the past few years. Gu Min snorted, so that when I abuse you in the future, you won't be beaten to death by me. The corner of Lu Shi's mouth twitched, and he said gloomily. Are you serious? Gu Min couldn't help but laugh. What do you think? Look at how weak you are. I usually have to restrain myself when I speak. It's uncomfortable. Lu Shi was speechless. If he didn't look so weak, would Gu Min beat him to death just because she was unhappy? Not long after, Gu Min discovered that her new husband still had some male chauvinism and shoppy chauvinism. It looks like it's not enough to just strengthen your body. You have to change your thinking. Lu Shi asked, how is my thinking crooked? Gu Min said, if your values are not right, I'm afraid that you will suffer when you reach middle age. Historical experience told her that Emperor Chen's thinking was advanced, and Lu Shi was old-fashioned and stubborn. Sooner or later, he would be taught a lesson by the emperor. Gu Min didn't train people in one step. Instead, she tested the bottom line bit by bit, and unknowingly changed people. Lu Shi didn't realize this, but his mother did. Ever since Gu Min married into the family, her son, who had been close to her, distanced himself from her and became more and more out of control. The problem of mother-in-law and daughter-in-law had been unavoidable since ancient times, not to mention that this mother-in-law had a grudge with Gu Min's mother when they were young. The mother-in-law often used her status to make things difficult for Gu Min, but Gu Min wasn't angry. She turned her head and threw the problem to Lu Shi. From Gu Min's point of view, the so-called mother-in-law and daughter-in-law problem was just the result of her son being caught in the middle and not caring about anything. The more her mother-in-law struggled, the more Lu Shi distanced himself from her. Gu Min spent more time and energy running her own business. Lu Shi, the resentful husband, had an opinion. Was there anything good about those messy account books? It's not like I can't afford to raise you. Why are you working so hard? Can't you look at me more? Regardless of whether you are a man or a woman, you should have your own career and financial resources. You wouldn't understand even if I told you. Gu Min calculated the profits of the whole year on her abacus. Every year, the profits doubled. Looking at the rich little vault, she felt very comfortable. She smiled at Lu Shi and said, I don't need to worry when I have money in my hands. If you marry a concubine in the future, I will have the capital to keep a few more men to satisfy my cravings. Lu Shi was used to Gu Min's way of speaking. He felt that if he spoke a few more words to her, his lifespan would be shortened, but if he didn't, he would die immediately. This was probably the difference between a death sentence with a reprieve and a death sentence. Do you think a man is better looking than me? Perhaps it was because he wanted to completely separate himself from the scumbag in Gu Min's dreams. Lu Shi was obedient to Gu Min's every whim. Also, because his wife was too successful in the circle of aristocratic ladies, she received a lot of love after every banquet. The sense of crisis in his heart had never subsided. Lu Shi didn't understand. Gu Min was so rude in private. Why did so many women adore her? When he secretly saw Gu Min at the banquet, he suddenly understood. She was not honest. She was gentle, dignified, and generous in front of the aristocratic ladies. But in front of him, she was the other side. Her mouth was super poisonous. What's more, Lu Shi vaguely heard that a certain aristocratic lady hinted that Gu Min wanted to spend time with her in her boudoir. A group of women outside coveted his wife, and his wife was always thinking about keeping a man. Did she really think that his brain was like a grassland where sheep could be grazed? A man is not as good-looking as Lu Zhongqing, but he wins with numbers. You have to know that the same face will lose its freshness after looking at it for a long time. Lu Shi gritted his teeth and said, "You really dare to say anything?" Gu Min said with a smile, "I dare to do anything." Lu Shi gritted his teeth and said, "Take a concubine?" "I will never take a concubine in this life. Don't even dream of keeping a man. It will never happen in this life." Gu Min laughed meaningfully, which made Lu Shi angry and angry. He probably loved Gu Min too much. After marriage, he liked her more and more. Gu Min didn't have the gentleness and kindness of ordinary women, but he liked her very much. Perhaps it was as his mother said. His brain was poisoned and he was completely hopeless. "No, I think it's because your fan filter is as exaggerated as half the diameter of the earth." Gu Min listened to her husband's daily analysis of confessions and couldn't help but ridicule him. What is a fan filter? Gu Min smiled and said, "When you love someone deeply, your eyes will always see the good points and ignore the shortcomings. That is the fan filter. The thicker the fan filter, the more exaggerated and hopeless it is. Even the shortcomings of the other person are regarded as the standard." Lu Shi pinched his chin and said, "I'm probably hopeless. You're the only one who can save me." Gu Min continued, "Not only that, I also suspect that you have masochistic tendencies." Lu Shi blinked and humbly asked for guidance. "What is a masochist?" Gu Min rubbed her chin and said, "A masochist is a character with masochistic tendencies and psychological tendencies. You have masochism." Lu Shi didn't agree with her judgment. "Only to you. It wasn't masochism. He just couldn't bear to hurt Gu Min. He hoped that she could belong to him and that he could bring the best to her." Gu Min couldn't help but blush. She wasn't cold-hearted. How could she stand Lu Shi's confession every day? The two of them had been married for a year and had no children. Lu Shi's mother was very unhappy. She made the decision to send Lu Shi a maid with the intention to disgust Gu Min, but in the end, Lu Shi sent them all back. "It's enough to have her as a son. I still have my brother to carry on the family line." Lu Shi wasn't the eldest son, nor was he the only son. He really couldn't bear to let Gu Min suffer. Most men in the world only knew how to plant seeds and wait for the flowers to bloom and bear fruit. They didn't know how terrible it was to have a child. Lu Shi broke into a cold sweat just thinking about it. The story started half a year ago. Gu Min followed him out to study and play. On the way, they met a pregnant woman who had been imprisoned by bandits for several years. She had finally escaped, but she was 7 months pregnant. She couldn't bear the torment of Gu Min and gave birth halfway through the journey. If no one had discovered her, she would have most likely died along the way. Although Lu Shi didn't agree with Gu Min giving birth, he couldn't go against her wishes. It was at that time that Lu Shi saw how the woman gave birth with his own eyes. He was so scared that he didn't recover for a whole month. The child's head popped out from that place. There was blood everywhere. Lu Shi's legs turned to jelly. "Were you scared?" Gu Min accepted it well. She came from the future. In the 3rd grade of primary school, relevant physiological knowledge was taught. Both boys and girls learned it. The content of the course was not only about the biological differences between men and women, but also how to conceive and give birth. There was also personal hygiene. The teaching was quite comprehensive. The royal family said that sex was human nature. It wasn't shameful and there was no need to avoid it. Even though she had learned theoretical knowledge, it was her first time helping someone deliver a baby. It was said that in ancient times, Women had weak bodies and narrow pelvises. The risk of childbirth was high. It was different for modern women. Almost every generation practiced physical training. The difficulty and risk of childbirth were greatly reduced. Not to mention other things, just this alone was enough to praise Emperor Chen to the heavens. He was simply the best friend of women. Lu Shi's face was pale. Will you be like this in the future? Gu Min said. Yes. Lu Shi's face became even uglier. He was walking on air. In the first year of marriage, he had hoped to have 2 children early. Now, he was terrified. His mind was filled with all kinds of thoughts of dystocia. Fate was so wonderful. When Lu Shi was looking forward to having children, nothing happened. He didn't want them anymore, but the children came. Although having children is a happy thing, you don't have to be so happy that you faint, right? Lu Shi's lips moved, but he couldn't say anything for a long time. After hesitating for a few days, Lu Shi said something that made Gu Min want to beat him to death. How about we give up on the children? Gu Min rolled her eyes. Even if I don't want you? Lu Shi said, Min, I'm serious. I've been dreaming about your dystocia for the past few days. I can't take it anymore. Gu Min sighed. Can't you be more considerate of me? What dystocia or hemorrhage? That would never happen to me. 10 months of pregnancy and 1 day of childbirth. Gu Min thought it was the Emperor Chen that she had been longing for, but it turned out to be a boy. Her smooth sailing life started to go downhill from there. Gu Min found a time traveler who harbored great malice towards her. She thought she would be safe if she avoided him, but it turned out that she was too naive. Sometimes, she had no intention of stirring up trouble, but the enemy was relentless and tried to kill her. What scared Gu Min the most was that the enemy didn't seem to be after her, but the future Emperor Chen. There were a few conflicts. Although the man didn't do anything to hurt her, Gu Min was still frightened. Soon, her premonition was confirmed. One day, Gu Min was at home dealing with miscellaneous chores when she suddenly received terrible news. Her son's wet nurse had just woken up from her afternoon nap and found that her son had disappeared. The child was only 2 years old and walked steadily but slowly. There were maids waiting on him outside the house. How could the child disappear into thin air? Gu Min was frightened and hurried to look for her son, but she was ambushed on the way. Zhong Qing, Gu Min struggled to open her eyes. She had a splitting headache, as if someone had torn her brain apart with their bare hands. She felt nauseous. Lu Shi's eyes were dark and bloodshot. His face was full of stubble and he looked particularly haggard. He said with tears in his eyes, Min. You're finally awake. Lu Shi had never felt so hopeless. 2 huge blows fell on him on the same day. His 2-year-old son was missing and his wife was left in the side yard covered in blood. They almost couldn't save her. Gu Min calmed down for a while. Scattered memories flashed through her mind. She remembered that her son had gone missing and she hurried to look for him, but she met Wang Huiyun. Wang Huiyun. The best friend whose body had been possessed by the woman from another world. Gu Min suddenly woke up and grabbed Lu Shi's hand. Where's our son? Lu Shi said, we haven't found him yet. As soon as he finished speaking, his son's wet nurse rushed over and pushed the door open. She cried, we found Dalong. Was she looking for a beating? Gu Min was happy at first, but her heart sank when she saw the wet nurse's reaction. It was a good thing that their son had been found. Why was she crying? Take me to Dalong. Gu Min lifted the quilt and staggered to her feet. Her heart seemed to have sunk into a cold, deep sea. The child was found in a deserted and remote courtyard. His little body was curled up into a ball. His calves were bruised and swollen. His body was cold and stiff. Gu Min pushed away the maids and servants like crazy. She snatched the body of the child, whose eyes were closed, and cried her heart out. According to the doctor's examination, the child had come to the small courtyard for fun, but was bitten by a 5-step snake. He died without treatment. Gu Min didn't believe it. The child was only 2 years old. There were maids and wet nurses guarding him. How could he have walked thousands of meters to such a remote place to be bitten by a snake? It must be her. It must be that woman. She had possessed Wang Huiyun's body and plotted against teacher Xie Qian. She didn't know what she was capable of. Not only could she hurt Gu Min, but she had also secretly taken the child away and poisoned him to death. Gu Min almost wanted to rush into the palace to get even with the evil woman, but Lu Shi stopped her. I lost my child. I can't lose you too. Gu Min grabbed Lu Shi's collar and gritted her teeth. So my son died for nothing? There will be a chance. There will be a chance for revenge. Let's think about it. Gu Min, you have to calm down so that you can avenge Dalong. From then on, Gu Min's health slowly deteriorated. She would fall sick from time to time. People said that it was because she had lost her beloved son and suffered a huge blow. However, Gu Min didn't think that was the case. The deterioration of her health was definitely related to the attack that day. It was the truth. Her health deteriorated not only because of her eldest son, but also because the time traveler used the soul-searching technique on her. Lu Shi also entered the officialdom at that time. To outsiders, the couple seemed to have come out of their grief, but they knew that they hadn't. 2 years passed in a flash. Many things happened in Dongqing, but Gu Min didn't have the heart to care about them. She found out that she was pregnant again. After 10 months, she gave birth to a pair of children after a day and a night of labor. The twins were chubby and cute. When they smiled, they revealed a pair of cute little dimples. My nephew and niece are so smart and cute. They look very smart. At the banquet, the eldest brother, Lu Zhai, looked at his nephew and niece and praised them with a smile. Gu Min was stunned on the spot. Smart, cute, and smart? She suddenly looked at her daughter. A chill spread from the soles of her feet to the top of her head. Not long after the banquet, Gu Min found an excuse to bring her daughter to Shangfu Temple to see Master Liaochen. After a round of examination, Master Liaochen didn't look very good. This was because the baby girl's soul was complete. Her eyes were clear and lively. She could clearly call out father and mother when she just turned 1 year old. No one knew what the two of them talked about. Gu Min left with her daughter with a dead expression. She went back to Langjie County to see Master Yuanjing. Chun, I beg you to think of a way. Can't you have the best of both worlds? Gu Min hugged her daughter who was sleeping soundly. She looked like she was about to collapse. Her eyes were filled with despair. I can't have my cake and eat it too. There's nothing I can do. Master Yuanjing was helpless. Gu Min cried uncontrollably. The movement woke up her daughter in her arms. The mother and daughter cried miserably. She thought that her daughter was demented and soulless. In the future, this body would welcome a strong soul and obtain a new life. But what happened? Her daughter was born with a complete soul. This meant that this daughter was a new life. She was Gu Min's daughter. How could she accept that her daughter's body was occupied by another destined soul after she raised her for 12 years? If she didn't do this, the Jiang dynasty that should have been established would no longer exist. The chaotic world that should have ended early would continue. As the chaotic world dragged on, there would be countless lonely souls and ghosts. Even if the world was divided and reunited, the dynasty that was established was not the Jiang dynasty. Maybe Emperor Chen is someone else. Gu Min returned to Hejin County with this thought in mind. However, Master Liaochen dispelled her beautiful dream. The child in her arms died young. She wouldn't live past 12 years old. Her life would move towards an unpredictable future in this year. God probably saw that Gu Min had lived the first half of her life too happily. Now, he was going to collect a debt from her with interest. She raised her child anxiously until she was 4 years old. There was another life in her womb. She was about to give birth. Just when she thought that the haze was about to dissipate, tragedy struck again. This year, just after the Spring Festival, the snow in Hejian County had not completely melted. Her second son accidentally fell into a pond and drowned. When Lu Shi received the news and rushed back, he only saw his daughter sitting by the pond and patting Gu Min's slender shoulders. Gu Min was kneeling on the ground, holding a wet ball with a blank look in her eyes. Lu Shi was so shocked that his legs turned to jelly and he fell down the corridor. Ah Min? Beside Gu Min, other than her daughter, no one dared to comfort her. After a long while, the sky darkened. The cold wind blew and Gu Min came back to her senses. Her eyes had long been dry from crying. I couldn't even protect my second son. But he can't play in the pond. Everyone knew that the child was afraid of water. No matter where she went to play, she would never go near the pond. Lu Shi discovered this and sent people to fill up the pond in the mansion. He didn't expect the child to drown in another place. Gu Min struggled to finish the child's funeral. She was too tired and gave birth to a thin and weak child early. Her once healthy body completely collapsed. She thought that the person who killed her was a woman from another world who had evil intentions towards her and Emperor Qin. She endured the pain and told the public that it was her daughter who died of illness and drowned in the water. Gu Min was very worried. According to the cruelty of the woman from another world, her daughter might not even live past the age of 12. She wanted to take revenge but was unable to do so. This kind of feeling made her unhappy. Not only was she worried about external harm, but she was also more worried about the self-correction of history. She was worried that her youngest son would not be able to escape. She was depressed and her illness became more serious. Lu Shi's cousin, Biyao, saw this and took the initiative to stay and take care of the sick Gu Min occasionally. She would talk to her to relieve her boredom and try to comfort her. Even so, Gu Min's condition was getting worse day by day. Gu Min had a vague feeling that she would not live for long. She simply confessed everything to Lu Shi and even lied about having two souls in one body. She recorded everything she knew and left it to Lu Shi. If possible, she hoped that Lu Shi could live well and not repeat the ending of history. Spring had just passed and midsummer had not arrived. Her life began to count down. No one would have thought that Gu Min's dowry maid would be the last straw that broke her back. The maid was clever and Gu Min liked her very much. She made the decision to help her find a good marriage. Her whole family worked in the mansion. Knowing that the maid had come, Gu Min thought that she was also there to comfort her. She did not expect that the maid would tell her such shocking news. When her eldest son was poisoned to death by a poisonous snake, the maid had seen Lu Shi coming from the direction of the deserted courtyard. She had wanted to go there to find the eldest Lang Jun but was sent away by Lu Shi. Later, the eldest Lang Jun died young. The maid did not suspect that Lu Shi was the murderer. She did not have any evidence and did not want to ruin the relationship between the couple. She seemed to have seen Lu Shi's figure when the second Lang Jun drowned in the pond. However, Lu Shi came back from the magistrate's office. It was really strange. Gu Min's eyes were wide open. Her bony hands grabbed the bedding. Her breathing was rapid and disordered. Her face was full of disbelief. That night, Gu Min died of illness. No one knew that this loving couple had once quarreled, and Gu Min was strangled to death by her beloved husband. When Gu Min did not move, Lu Shi let go of his hand with a ferocious look. His eyes were filled with hostility. He did not have his usual gentleness. He waved his hand and Gu Min, who had died a horrible death, returned to her sickly and pale appearance. It was as if she had just slept. Lu Shi laughed hideously and murmured to himself, as if he was warning someone. Did you see that? This is what you get for trying to resist me. The so-called Lu Shi was just a part of his 7 emotions and 6 desires. He was just a thing that could not even be counted as a life. How dare he try to resist him again and again? He lost 2 pieces in a row and did not learn his lesson. This stupid woman named Gu Min was also too much. How dare she try to challenge his bottom line? Damn it. As soon as he finished speaking, Lu Shi's body suddenly began to violently twitch and fell into a deep sleep. The next day, the news of Gu Min's death spread. The outside world said that Lu Shi was greatly affected and fell ill. After that, the world changed. In the blink of an eye, several years had passed. The wheel of history slowly moved forward, heading in an unknown direction. On the other side, Gu Min, who had fallen into darkness because of the lack of oxygen, thought she was going to die. When she was about to lose consciousness, a strange scene suddenly appeared. She saw the gentle scum, Lu Shi, in a suit talking to Jiang Chen at the school gate. In the end, he extended his hand and handed Jiang Chen a yin-yang fish jade pendant. Gu Min could not help but shout loudly, trying to get Jiang Chen to stay away from Lu Shi. This animal was not a good thing. In her excitement, a gust of fresh air rushed into her chest. She breathed greedily and suddenly opened her eyes. The scene in front of her was familiar yet strange. The snow-white ceiling of the dormitory was enlarged in front of her eyes. Countless memories filled her brain. 9 stars in a row? Gu Min climbed out of bed and looked at the night sky outside the window. Her heart skipped a beat. She hurriedly took out her phone and called Jiang Chen. Chen, where are you? Gu Min's voice sounded panicky. Knowing that Jiang Chen was at the school gate, Gu Min rode her bicycle over. She did not expect to see an old acquaintance. When she lost consciousness, she saw Jiang Chen and Lu Shi talking about something. New hatred and old hatred, love and hate intertwined, forced Gu Min to lose her mind. She stepped forward and gave Lu Shi a slap. Thinking back to her previous lives, she realized that this Lu Shi was the same Lu Shi. After doing such a disgusting thing, this man still dared to appear in front of her? Lu Shi. She burst out cursing. F***CKU. Min? Lu Shi was not angry. Instead, he laughed, as if the person who was inexplicably slapped wasn't him. Even a blind person could see that he was in a good mood. If he had a background, it would be 100 flowers blooming. Are you still a human? Gu Min was so angry that the veins on her forehead were bulging. Her expression was somewhat ferocious. Why did you give this lousy jade pendant to Chin Chin? Why did you trick her into bringing it to the tomb? What are you scheming in your stomach? Tell me. Don't play dumb. Lu Shi smiled bitterly. If I said that I did not do anything, would you believe me? Tell that to a ghost. Gu Min said angrily. If I believe half a word of your nonsense, I'll write my name backwards. Jiang Chen watched the situation unfold. His brain could not wrap around it. When did Min become so close to Professor Lu Shi? After all, it was a family matter. Under Lu Shi's suggestion and pleading, Gu Min went to his apartment to continue the conversation. Those things. I really did not do them, Gu Min laughed. It was a cold laugh. She said, what nonsense are you trying to lie to me now? What didn't he do? This guy had confessed everything before he strangled her to death. He had bitten Dalong to death with a poisonous snake and watched him breathe his last breath. He had personally drowned Erlang in the pond and killed him. The 2 children were his flesh and blood. Why did he have to do such a cruel thing? Can you listen to my explanation? About 3 minutes. Fine. Kneel and explain. Gu Min was so angry that she laughed. She wanted to hear what else this animal could say to clear his name. From Lu Shi's mouth, Gu Min heard another story. Lu Shi was not a human. He was an emotion separated from the system. He was relatively independent, but not completely independent. You said that. Dalong, Erlang, and even my death were all done by the so-called original body when you were not paying attention? Gu Min had guessed it before, but she only suspected that Lu Shi had a split personality. She had never suspected that Lu Shi was not a human. Lu Shi stared blankly at his hands and said sadly, yes. Gu Min sneered. You really know how to pass the buck. Do you think I will still believe your nonsense? Half an hour ago, she had just been strangled by Lu Shi. Now he was telling her that the person who killed her was not him? Was he kidding? Did he really think that she loved this person so much that she had forgotten the most basic principles? Lu Shi smiled bitterly. I didn't dare to expect you to believe me. Gu Min sneered, I can't forgive you either. She got up and was ready to leave the suffocating place. Lu Shi suddenly reached out and grabbed her wrist. What are you doing? Lu Shi's lips moved, and it took him a while to say something. I know you hate me and want me to disappear from the face of the earth, but, for the sake of the child, Gu Min's emotions exploded like a barrel of gunpowder. How dare you talk to me about children? Lu Zhongqing, you disgust me. Lu Shi grabbed her hand and dragged her into a room. The decorations in the room made Gu Min forget about her anger. What is this? Lu Shi let go of her hand and picked up a strangely shaped, glass barrel. There were 3 faint blue lights floating in it. Souls. The souls of 3 children. Daolong, Erlang, and our daughter, Lu Shi. That child, Lu Zhao, lived a good life. He had no regrets, so he was allowed to be reincarnated. But for these 3 children, I hope that we can give them a new life and let them see the world again under our watch. He smiled faintly. The souls of these 3 children were the motivation that had kept him waiting for more than 100 years. He had searched for Gu Min for a very, very long time. From the time he watched her grow up, he had been hiding in the dark, not daring to show himself. It was only when she became the Gu Min that he was familiar with that he felt that his endless wait had finally come to an end. I made a deal with that Empress Chen that you spoke of. She helped me find these 3 souls and let me see you. In exchange, I have to help her do something. Gu Min pressed her hands against the transparent glass. She didn't know if it was an illusion, but 3 strong and weak emotions came to her. They were extremely warm and made her eyes redden. Faintly, there seemed to be a childish voice calling out to her. They can only do this? Gu Min finally calmed down. All she could see was the light in front of her. Lu Shi said, no, they still have a chance to come back to life. We can do IVF and let them reincarnate. They will still be our children. Gu Min looked at him suspiciously. After a while, she asked, price? What is the price? What did you promise Empress Chen? Lu Shi smiled. A small matter. A small matter? Gu Min didn't quite believe him. She didn't believe a word Lu Shi said. She had to think carefully about every word he said. Yes. Lu Shi smiled. A small matter. It's not worth mentioning. Compared to Gu Min and the children, it was a small matter. He was the system's 7 emotions and 6 desires, a part of the system itself. Jianghu wanted to collect the entire system to perfect the sword, and Lu Shi couldn't escape. Because of Lu Shi's special nature, Jianghu couldn't absorb him like she did with other systems. Lu Shi used himself as a bargaining chip and made a deal with her. I will accompany Gu Min for a lifetime. When she dies of old age, I will kill myself and return to the sword. What do you think? He had a promise with Gu Min for 3 lifetimes. Now, he could only accompany her for a lifetime. It sounded regretful, but for Lu Shi, it was enough. Lu Shi knew Gu Min well. He knew her softest heart. After all, he was also a victim. Gu Min wouldn't vent her anger on him when she calmed down. She would forgive him for the sake of the 3 children. Lu Shi's plan was very thorough. He had calculated countless times over the past 100 years. He had calculated every reaction and every move of hers clearly. He knew exactly how to deal with it. The development of the matter was indeed as he had expected. Lu Shi was dragged by Gu Min to get their marriage certificate the next day. She didn't want the children to be born out of wedlock. After getting the certificate, they went to the hospital to prepare for the test tube. That's too fast. Anne. I don't think it's necessary to do a test tube at our age. You still want to touch me? Gu Min sneered. You are my teacher now. How could a teacher and a disciple be together? Lu Shi was speechless. What era are we in now? Gu Min also thought about it. She felt a headache coming on. Her academic results were not very good, and she had lived in ancient times for more than 20 years. In the end, she even forgot how to type on her phone. If it wasn't for Lu Shi, who gave her special attention, she was afraid that she would have been exposed. The most troublesome thing was her habit of speaking. Jiang Chen suspected Gu Min more than once. If Gu Min didn't remember the little secret between them, she wouldn't have been able to keep it a secret. Their relationship became better after Gu Min got pregnant. When she saw the 2 bars on the pregnancy test stick, she hid in the women's bathroom and cried. Jiang Chen saw the tears on her face and went to fight with Lu Shi with the pregnancy test stick in her hand. If Gu Min hadn't stopped them, and if Lu Shi hadn't taken out his marriage certificate, the 2 of them would have torn down the villa in the suburbs while they fought. Jiang Chen was suspicious. He really didn't force you? Gu Min said, no. Things between us are more complicated. I did it willingly. But... Chen, I'll tell you when I'm done sorting things out, okay? Jiang Chen looked at Lu Shi and sized him up. This person isn't very decent. Think about it carefully. Lu Shi was speechless. He's not decent? Say that again, son of the Jiang family. Gu Min laughed. I know. If there's anything wrong with him, I'll destroy him myself. Lu Shi swore, I won't give you that chance. They had to live a good life in this life. Lu Shi settled his parents-in-law in this life and won back Gu Min's heart. He looked at the 3 little ones lying in their cribs and giggled. But no matter how much he calculated, he still forgot one thing. Did you blow up Emperor Chen's tomb? Lu Shi was speechless. One love. 1 second to remember this site's address. Mobile version. Chapter 1872. There is a saying in the songs of Chu, holding the jewel in one's arms, one does not know what to show. In layman's terms, I had the qualities of a beautiful jade, but no one could appreciate them, and no one could show them to the fullest. Feng Jin, courtesy name Huayu, came from this name. His father's expectations for him could be seen from his name alone. The elders bestowed upon him the name Jin and set the courtesy name Yu in hopes that he would possess a noble and unblemished character and not bring shame to the Feng family. This had always been Feng Jin's goal. With the birth of his 3rd brother, Feng Ju, the attention that was originally focused on him was now focused on his youngest brother. His eldest brother, Feng Gui, was the eldest legitimate son and the future leader of the Feng family. The elders had set the strictest standards for him and he did not disappoint them. The youngest brother, Feng Ju, was the youngest and looked like a carved jade. He had shown intelligence that was different from his peers since he was young, and the elders treated him like a treasure. As a result, there were very few gazes that fell on Feng Jin. When he was young and ignorant, he didn't feel that there was anything wrong with it. But when he started reading, he slowly discovered this point. He strived to be like his eldest brother, strived to be a qualified elder brother who took care of his younger brother, strived to become the most outstanding one in the family school. He put in 120% of his effort, but what made him disappointed was that the results he obtained were not as good as his eldest brother and 3rd brother's efforts. Feng Jin felt sad because of this. He didn't know what he did wrong. Until the words of an elder from the same clan woke him up. You want to fight with your big brother? Feng Jin's excellence was obvious to all. There were countless people who wanted to curry favor with him, but there were also countless people who hated him. An adult's mind was different from a child's. In their eyes, a child's innocent actions might be scheming and malicious. Feng Jin was stunned for a long time. His mouth opened and closed, and he only managed to squeeze out a sentence after a long while. My brother is the eldest son of the D family and is talented. How would I dare to have such thoughts? The Feng family was known for its upright family style, and it was a taboo for brothers to fight against each other. They also had detailed rules for the inheritance of the family business. Unless Feng Gui committed an unforgivable mistake, his position as the successor would be as stable as Mount Tai. Feng Jin also had no intention of competing with his elder brother. The elder said, "Since you don't have such intentions, then you should learn to avoid arousing suspicion." Feng Jin was embarrassed and did not speak for a long time. He only felt his cheeks were burning and uncomfortable. There was an indescribable pain in his heart. Even the 5 fingers have different lengths, and the human heart is located on the left side of the chest, not in the center. You have to understand these words. Feng Jin naturally understood this, so he left the family school and went to Shangjing to study. During his study tour in Shangjing, Feng Jin met many people, including the eldest son of the Meng family in Sangzhou, Meng Heng. Looking at Meng Heng's situation, then looking at his own brother, Feng Jin's horizons were broadened. He muttered to himself that the Mengs were really unscrupulous. They treated their eldest son like trash. If Meng Heng had not introduced himself, he would have thought that he was a poor scholar from a poor family. Meng Heng occasionally talked about his relatives, including Lu Shi, the son of Hu County Chief Lu Shi. Before seeing Lu Shi in person, Feng Jin did not have much of an impression of him. He only knew that such a person existed in this world, but he did not have a specific image in his mind. Feng Jin had never thought that he would be involved with this person. Looking back many years later, Feng Jin felt that he had been too naive. When they first met in the bandit stockade, Feng Jin appeared in front of Lu Shi in the most embarrassing state. At that time, he was escorting the 4th prince, Wu Majun, to escape from many pursuers, and finally fell into the pit named Lu Shi. Without a doubt, Lu Shi was a person who left a deep impression. She was obviously a woman, but she pretended to be a man. She looked weak and slender, but she had the strength to fight 1,000 people alone. Feng Jin always had a doubt. If Lu Shi had such talent, why would he fall into the bandit stockade with a group of noble ladies and be so embarrassed? Thousands of questions were stuck in Feng Jin's throat. He was curious, but he did not ask further. After all, he had always thought that his connection with her was limited to this. After leaving the bandit stockade, Feng Jin safely escorted the 4th prince to Hejin County. He took the time to see his good friend from school, Lu Heng, nicknamed Yaoji, Lu Shi's cousin. Under Lu Heng's invitation, Feng Jin went to the Lu's family school with him. Coincidentally, Feng Jin heard Lu Shi's forceful refutation. After many encounters and coincidences, the image of Lu Shi in Feng Jin's heart became more and more complete. Although he was young, he showed off his abilities. His arrogance was even more troublesome than his youngest brother, Feng Ju. If there was one thing that Feng Jin regretted in his life, it was probably being coaxed by Wu Majun to visit Lang Lang Alley. It was not a big deal to visit the most prosperous area in Hejin County. What was embarrassing was that the two of them met Lu Shi and Lu Shi _ smiley face angle _ in Lang Lang Alley. It was normal for the father to visit Lang Lang Alley or the son to visit Lang Lang Alley. What was unusual was that the father and son came together. Oh, look at his poor memory. He forgot again that Lu Shi was not a Lang Jun, but a wife. Even if a wife wanted to visit Lang Lang Alley, she should not look for a flower lady to serve her. Go look for little Shu. Seeing Wu Majun and Lu Shi looking at each other, Feng Jin took the opportunity to leave with the excuse of looking for Lu Shi. Soon, he regretted it. Lu Shi had run into trouble again. Under her persuasion, Feng Jin followed her to the wall of Mr. Wei Yuan's mansion. She made a suggestion that Feng Jin remembered deeply. Smiley face angle _ climb over the wall. Feng Jin had never thought that he would be a gentleman on the beam again. If you want to visit, you can come during the day. Feng Jin saw that Lu Shi was about to roll up his wide sleeves and climb over the wall. His face became twisted, but he did not dare to raise his voice. He could only suppress his voice. If you get caught, Mr. Wei Yuan was famous for being strict. If his student climbed over the wall in the middle of the night, it would be fine if it was in the front yard, but if it was in the backyard, it would be like yellow mud falling into one's pants. Lu Lanting was not afraid of anything, but he still wanted his reputation. What are you afraid of? Come, I'll be your stepping stone. You climb over first. A woman told him that she wanted to be his stepping stone and help him climb over the wall. Feng Jin had 1,000 things he wanted to say. I don't believe that you're so kind. Tell me, how do you want to trick me? At this moment, he had lost his usual demeanor. He looked more like a teenager than an old and steady young master of a landowning household. Lu Shi smiled. You'll know once you climb over. Thus, Feng Jin, who had been making a lot of noise, was cheated and sat on the wall. He climbed over Lu Shi's arm with great difficulty. Lu Shi, who was at the bottom of the wall, chuckled. Huayu, why don't you take a look at the other side of the wall? Isn't there a bunch of people guarding there? Feng Jin looked at the rows of people on the other side of the wall, his face livid. Lu Shi. This was probably the legendary, ill-fated relationship. When Lu Shi was the matchmaker and Feng Jin married Lu Shi's ex-fiancée, he felt an indescribable sense of satisfaction. His friend's wife. No, he had forgotten that the guy was a woman. Wei Jingxian was a surprise to Feng Jin. He had never thought that the sharp-tongued and quick-witted girl would become his lifelong companion. The two women had left a deep impression on him that night. Lu Shi became Jianghu, and Feng Jin treated her as his master. He was loyal to her for life. Wei Jingxian became his son's mother and the mistress of the house. They had been loving for decades. Huayu, what are you laughing at? Feng Jin opened his eyes in the warm afternoon sun. The light was dazzling. He was about to raise his hand to shield his eyes when he saw a fragrant fan blocking the light for him. Feng Jin got up from the recliner and smiled. I had a sweet dream. I'm in a good mood. Wei Jingxian had changed the way she addressed him from husband to Huayu for many years. Feng Jin thought he was still a teenager, but when he looked at the woman in front of him, he realized that decades had passed. What sweet dream? Look at you. You're grinning from ear to ear. Wei Jingxian was over 50 years old and no longer wore bright colors. She preferred darker ones, but she was still very beautiful in Feng Jin's eyes. My granddaughter said you smiled while sleeping. She was afraid that you were sick. I dreamed about the first time I met you. Feng Jin stroked his beard and smiled. Do you still remember? Wei Jingxian waved the fan gently. Of course I remember. That night was unforgettable. She hid in the room and was scared. She didn't expect that the young man outside the door would become the man she entrusted her life to. At that time, the husband I was talking about was the one on the dragon throne. Feng Jin was speechless. He was jealous. Chapter 1873. There was a question that people laughed at for several years and replied with more than 2 million yuan. The question was this: how does it feel to be an unlucky person? The silly answers of the unlucky people became a source of joy for the netizens. Unlucky? This is an unspeakable pain in my heart. In my early years, I was addicted to XX producers and spent 2 years in the gold coin pool to get 4 SSR card fragments to 79. In the end, I won 10 consecutive rounds and got 4 SSR cards in a row. I'm so F***ed up. This unlucky person is really arrogant. He even dared to ask this question. A few years ago, a certain game had an event called Red Dust Old Dream. After 60 cooldowns, a pendant would definitely appear. On the 60th cooldown, this unlucky person got a pair of Night Talk egrets, and became a famous unlucky person in this game. The people above are all spies from Asia. A real unlucky person doesn't get a whole card or a pendant. Unlucky person has no gaming experience. Thank you. Unlucky person doesn't save the unlucky person. Spending money doesn't change one's fate. Persisted in buying lottery tickets for 21 years and never won $1. Smiley face angle. It said that there's a 99% chance of winning a drink. I drank more than 10 boxes of it. Thank you for your patronage. Unlucky person has so many twists and turns to have a meal. I was stood up on a blind date. I get a chill when I take a bath, QAQ, because I'm too unlucky. My best friend doesn't want to play with me. I've been reposting all kinds of lucky draws on Weibo all year round and never won a prize. Only 2 people have reposted it at one time. F***CK. When I was young, I always thought I was the chosen one. Later on, I found out that I was an unlucky person who was struck by lightning. The netizens were amused by all kinds of silly answers. A famous person's answer was very classic, and this question became a perennial hot topic. Why don't you ask this question to the magical unlucky person? The netizens were stunned for a moment before bursting into laughter. Tutu Feichio was a famous person. He was the first viewer of the Great Empress's live stream on the Great Empress Dimension, and he was also a devout follower. The first recorded video was from him, and he was the ancient giant god that many salted fish talked about. He was also the founder of the Empress's live stream forum and the editor of a related magazine. He majored in literature in university and took up live stream as his job after graduation. In terms of age, no one could compare to him. In terms of seriousness, no one could compare to him. According to his Weibo, he would watch the content of the live broadcast every day. Even if it wasn't a live broadcast or a rebroadcast, he would still watch the recordings and edits. He would write down notes and make a video document for everyone who had appeared in the live broadcast and mentioned their names. Along the way, she had graduated from university, bought a house, got married, was hospitalized for acute appendicitis, had a baby, was 1 year old, 1 month old, kindergarten, primary school. He had put in a lot of effort, and at the same time, the harvest was quite good. The Great Empress Forum was an evergreen tree. Under the management of Renbachian and a few other founders, it had flourished for a long time. Just the traffic and advertisements alone were enough to sustain the daily maintenance and updates of the forum, as well as the labor expenses. Every year, every founder would receive a dividend of 3 to 4 million yuan. The magazine that he sponsored also maintained profitable sales when the physical magazines were in decline. He had written detailed books for everyone in the live streaming room of the Empress. His writing was sharp and his words were humorous. He kept half of the profits from these books for himself and donated the other half to the charity foundation set up in the name of the broadcasting room. Of course, he still had millions of fans on Weibo, and he would occasionally earn some extra income. After that, he had crowdfunded and invested in a few television dramas and movies, which earned him a lot of money. After deducting taxes, his annual income was close to 8 figures. He should be considered a successful person among his peers and a lucky star in everyone's eyes, but it was a pity that, according to the long promise of the ancient god, he could be considered a typical example of bad luck from a young age. His teeth would get stuck when he drank water, he would fall on the ground when he walked, and when he went out to a crowded place, his phone would be stolen and his computer thrown away. It was said that the ancient god repeated this 3 times. He either lost his admission ticket for the college entrance examination inexplicably, or he had a strange fever. At the very least, he met with an accident on his way to the exam. I gave each of my accounts the ID, stowaway unlucky, hoping that I could sneak from Africa to Europe and become a European emperor. Smiley face angle, this was the inner voice and cry of an unlucky person. I think that I have experienced many twists and turns in my life, and I have always been unlucky, probably to accumulate all of my luck and meet the streamer. Stowaway Unlucky's words were very emotional and moving. Being the first to enter the streamer's room and the first to find Jiang Pengji had exhausted all of his accumulated luck. The host was silent for a moment, then asked, "So, is this the reason why you have never achieved the dream of 1,000 years? Stowaway Unlucky, please don't mention it." After the interview was released, the netizens couldn't help but laugh. The account ID was a clear indication of one's lineage. Even if Stowaway Unlucky set up his home in the streamer's network and snatched a spot in the streaming room every time, it still couldn't change the fact that he could not become a European emperor in the dream of 1,000 years. Mysteries do not save people, and spending money does not change one's fate. On the surface, he said he didn't care, but his heart was already bleeding. After the interview, Stowaway Unlucky became a source of joy for the idiotic netizens on Weibo that day. Stowaway Unlucky silently put away his phone. His face, which was no longer young and tender, was full of sadness. He wanted to become a European emperor. He didn't know if the heavens heard his wish, but when the streamer was about to retire, Stowaway Unlucky got his wish and transmigrated. Smiley face angle, in any case, it was a dream of 1,000 years. Even if it was so many years late, it could be considered as taking off the hat of Unlucky, right? After Stowaway Unlucky transmigrated, he laughed like an innocent child. Not long after he laughed, the false teeth in this body shifted, so he had to straighten them. I heard that the guest house has a new dish. Would you like to go with us? Stowaway Unlucky had just, sneakily, adjusted his false teeth and found a group of officials in official robes walking past him. They looked like they were about to go to court. He refused to leave and wanted to stay for a while longer. He stuck close to the door and looked into the hall like a thief. Before he could take a few more glances and see where His Majesty was, a familiar laughter rang in his ears. Your Majesty. Your Majesty. Stowaway Unlucky was so shocked that he almost rolled his eyes. He felt his blood rush to his head. Mother, a living idol. Yes. Jianghu asked him, do you want to go with us? Stowaway Unlucky followed her with one hand and one foot. He didn't remember what he said. After a long time, Your Majesty, don't you need to change your clothes? Jianghu said, it's not a dragon robe, and there are no dragon patterns on it. At most, I'm just a little richer than ordinary people. The emperor didn't wear the dragon robe every day. In fact, he only wore it a few times a year. There were 3 layers inside and 3 layers outside. It took a long time to put all the accessories together. How could an emperor have so many years to take care of this? His clothes were only slightly better than those of the rich. When Stowaway Unlucky arrived at the guest house, he found that there were already many people waiting in the private room. He was confused again. They were the same hand and foot. Mother, they were all living idols. Stowaway Unlucky's body was an old official who was about to retire. He didn't have much of a presence, but he had a good relationship with the other officials. His appearance at this private banquet was not unexpected. In fact, as a loyal follower of the streaming room, he knew that this was probably the last gathering before Jianghu abdicated. The next time she had a private banquet with the officials, her identity would no longer be the emperor, but the retired emperor. But, why did he feel a little weird? It seemed that the streamer knew that he would be the lucky one in this episode. Was it an illusion? Stowaway Unlucky secretly scratched his head, his old face full of confusion. Wei Ci, Yang Si, and a few others could tell that his colleague was strange, but he was usually a loner and didn't like to socialize. He didn't have a deep relationship with his colleagues. Even if they found out that the old official was strange, they didn't point it out. Her Majesty had amazing observation skills. If there was something strange, she would be the first to notice. Therefore, this little bit of doubt was suppressed by the crowd. They chatted about everything, reminisced about the past, or laughed about the future. The atmosphere was harmonious. Jianghu had prepared for 3 years to abdicate. Everything was ready. Crown Prince Jiang Lian had the style of his mother. Even if he couldn't handle the situation and lost his sense of propriety, the healthy retired emperor could still step in to suppress the situation. The officials were worried about her abdication, but they didn't oppose it. To be honest, there were many officials who secretly laughed out loud. The shadow in their hearts was about to disappear. Crown Prince Jiang Lian was much easier to serve than Her Majesty. In this regard, Stowaway Unlucky could only watch and watch silently. As a loyal follower of the live stream, he was very clear about Crown Prince Jiang Lian's temperament. He hoped that after Her Majesty abdicated, these gloating officials wouldn't cry and ask her to come back. Crown Prince Jiang Lian was not easy to deal with. Her twin sister, Jiang Yan, who was now a Jun Wang, was even more difficult to deal with. When Jianghu was on the throne, she could still suppress the 2 sisters and not harm the officials. Once this tight band was removed, they would be able to do whatever they wanted in the court. Although the standard of food in this era couldn't be compared to modern times, the dining environment was too good. Stowaway Unlucky ate until he was full. Yang Si smiled. Old sir, you have a good appetite. Did something good happen today? Ever since this old official got older, he was very particular about taking care of his body. He was always 70% full and was picky about his food. Today, he couldn't wait to lick his bowl clean. He ate until his stomach was bloated. Her Majesty even ordered someone to prepare soup for him to digest. Stowaway Unlucky said, I've never been as happy as I am today in my life. Although he didn't know why his colleague was happy, the joy on his face wasn't fake. Yang Si naturally wouldn't be unlucky, so he smiled and smoothed things over. His Majesty was about to abdicate, and there was no such thing as too many good things. It was better to eat to his heart's content than to frown and sigh. After the meal, the crowd dispersed. Jiang Pengji found an excuse to say that she wanted the white dragon fish costume. It wasn't the first or second time that he brought his officials to visit incognito, so it wasn't too conspicuous this time. This incognito visit is different from what I imagined. This was simply shopping. He knew that Jiang Pengji could hear what he was muttering. Jiang Pengji said, What else? What other thrilling plot do you think it could be? The stowaway chief blinked innocently. Jiang Pengji said, I'm old and my digestion isn't as good as it used to be. Walk more to aid digestion, or you'll end up with a stomachache. Tudu Feichio, so, the so-called white dragon fish suit was actually a stroll to aid digestion? Jiang Pengji took the opportunity when no one was paying attention to her and said with a smile, Thank you. Companionship was the longest confession of love. She felt that the salted fish, led by the stowaway chief, was true love. Tudu Feichio was stunned and immediately understood that the words were directed at him. You're welcome. It's my honor to know Her Majesty. He never felt that he was unlucky. Unlucky people couldn't meet Jiang Pengji, but one night in his sophomore year, he met a bright pearl that shone for half of his life. Genius remembered the address of this website in a second. Mobile version. Chapter 1874. It was still a story with a light-hearted and humorous plot. The male protagonist had been offline for a long period of time. Tomorrow at 7:00 p.m., you could watch it on the Chidian app, click on Wonderful New Book, First Exposure for Girls homepage banner, or on the QQ Reading Live broadcast area. Smiley face angle, he had been on a diet for 2 years, and he was getting fatter. He felt that his face could fill up the entire screen of his mobile phone. Epsilon equals, omega asterisk, sigh, just thinking about it made him feel hopeless. The Empress still had a few more chapters, and she was bored. She would officially end this book before the 5th of February. Guide to Live broadcast by the Empress, tomorrow at 7:00 p.m., live broadcast activity. Currently typing, please wait for a moment. After the content has been updated, please refresh the page to receive the latest update. Chapter 1875. External chapter, Zhang Lian. This life chapter, Zhang Lian was known as the first prince. The person she respected the most was the current emperor, her mother, Jiang Pengji. The person she respected next was the grand tutor, Wei Ci, who seemed to have an ambiguous relationship with her mother and was suspected to be her biological father. The person he liked the most was his twin sister, the second princess, Jiang Yan. The second person he liked was the youngest son of boss Qiguan's family, little Langjun Qiguan Shi. Other than the 4 people mentioned above, the one she was closer to was her favorite playmate, Nan Nan. It was rumored that Nan Nan was the eldest wife of Grand Tutor Wei Ci's family, an iron-eating beast who could not grow up but had a long life. The above was a simple introduction of the people around Zhang Lian. Even though she was born to be favored by the heavens, she still had her own troubles. She seems like a slacker. QAQ, what a cruel reality. Her entire family was a straight-A student, but she was just a slacker. It was not that Zhang Lian's studies were bad, but with the requirements of the crown prince, her learning ability was not as good as expected. Thinking of this, Princess Jiang Lian looked sad. Although the Grand Tutor and other teachers would not reprimand her because she was the Crown Prince and the future Empress, as her subjects, they had no right to punish Jiang Lian. However, weren't a few study companions used to take the blame? Take the blame for the Crown Prince. The young Qiguanshi was punished the most, and most of the time, he was the one who asked for it. Your Highness, I'm fine. Qiguanshi, who was chosen to be the study companion of the Crown Prince at the age of 5, consoled the first prince with a serious expression. Because of Jiang Lian, his palm was slapped by the old teacher who was teaching him. His right palm was red. Actually, the headmaster did not hit him too hard. After all, Qiguan Shui was Qiguan Rank's youngest son. Ordinary people could not afford to offend him, but he looked pathetic. Jiang Lian pursed her lips, still feeling very uncomfortable. How would he be able to give lectures in front of the pavilion in the future if his studies were not good? She also wanted to study hard, but her learning speed was not fast. There was always a gap between her and the Grand Tutor's expectations. Jiang Lian even suspected that she was too weak. Was she born stupid and unable to be educated? Could a mediocre person like him really live up to his mother's expectations and manage the world? Occasionally, when she couldn't sleep, she would have a thought when she tossed and turned in bed. Why don't I let my younger sister do it? My younger sister can do it better. Although they were born in the royal family, Jiang Lian had a good relationship with her younger sister. Since they were young, they had no desire to fight for power. Jiang Lian simply felt that her talent was not as good as her younger sister's. If her mother focused all her energy on her younger sister, it would be much easier for her to cultivate her. You've been beaten red, yet you say you're fine. Qiguanshi's face was as fair as jade, and she had been beautiful since she was a child. Jiang Lian was the one who requested for him to be the study companion of the Crown Prince, and his father happily sent him to the palace. Under the teachings of his father, Qiguan Rang, Qiguan Yan had always kept one thing in mind: His First Highness was the most important and he had to be loyal to him for life. Before becoming her study partner, Qiguanshi had interacted with Jiang Lian a few times. It was said that when he was 1 month old, this little prince had carried him and invited him to stay in the palace for a few days. Of course, Qiguanshi did not remember this. But he knew that this young but steady highness was a very likable person. His only shortcoming was that his academic performance was not very good, and he often punished his study companions. However, Qiguanshi did not think that this was a shortcoming. At most, it showed that she was not good at studying. No matter how good the emperor's academic performance was, he would not go to the imperial examinations. His First Highness only needed to learn how to be a qualified emperor who could work for the welfare of the people. Then, she would be successful and qualified. Throughout history, most emperors would brag about how smart and knowledgeable they were. It was not difficult to learn these things, but how many emperors could still remember the words of the saints after becoming emperors? Even if the emperor's academic performance was excellent, he would not be able to let the people live a good life and would still be reviled by his descendants. When Qiguanshi used a serious tone to comfort Jiang Lian and spoke logically, Jiang Lian could not help but burst out laughing. Did Qiguanshi teach you to say these words? Qiguanshi nodded. Indeed, father often talks about them. It was no secret that Jiang Lian's academic performance was poor, and some of the ministers had been worried about her for a while. His First Highness's studies were mediocre, while his Second Highness was lazy and did not strive to improve. Why would the outstanding emperor give birth to such an ordinary daughter? If the twins had an ordinary background, the ministers could still find an excuse to complain that the boy's talent was too poor and that he was a burden to the emperor. However, when Jiang Lian and the twins were born, they were accompanied by auspicious signs and the reincarnation of Ziwei. The ministers could only swallow their complaints. Qiguan Rang used to be one of them. He became bald because of the crown prince. However, he soon realized that he was being too stubborn. There was no need for a crown prince to learn better than a great Confucian scholar. She only needed to know that there was such a thing and learn it comprehensively so that she would not be fooled. One could never be too old to learn. She was only a few years old, and she would have plenty of time to learn slowly in the future. Compared to the other geniuses, Jiang Lian's academic performance could only be described as mediocre. However, this crown prince had the qualities of an excellent heir. She had her own opinions on how to judge and use people. The rarest thing about her was her temperament. She was neither arrogant nor impetuous, modest and gentle, but not weak. Jiang Lian was a very patient person. This could be seen from the time when Jiang Lian followed Yan Lin to the south to punish corruption and cheating cases at the age of 10. Although she was young, her actions were frighteningly steady. With Yan Lin teaching her how to set up schemes, her mind was so complicated that others could not see through her. She was full of schemes. Qiguan Rang was speechless. His Majesty was a person who wrote arrogance on his face. Now that he was older, he had to restrain himself. The second prince could not wait to carve the word lazy on his face. He did not have much of a presence since he was young. The first prince, she had an honest face. On the surface, the word harmless was written on her face. When she cut open her stomach, it was full of black liquid. How did the honest and lovely first prince of the past become a scheming smiling tiger in the blink of an eye? Did she grow up in a bad way? Qiguan Rang and the other old ministers expressed their concern. But this is good. There are many civil and military officials in the court who are easy to deal with. If the first prince does not learn to be as smart as his Majesty, how can he control the ministers? Qiguan Rang and Fengzhen played chess. Occasionally, the two princes were mentioned. Naturally, there was a lot of discussion. Although the first prince did not have much talent in learning, his practical ability was top-notch. After he officially entered the court at the age of 13, every case he handled was praised as beautiful. This made the old ministers feel much more at ease. It was settled. Fengzhen said, "I feel that the second prince is more unfathomable." The second prince was synonymous with lazy. She did not work hard, but no one could say that she was incompetent. From Fengzhen's point of view, the second prince seemed to be hiding her strength and biding her time. It also seemed like she was hiding to avoid arousing suspicion. At first, they were worried like everyone else. Worried about what? They were worried that the two princes would start a fight for the throne when they came of age. Not long after, the first prince was appointed as the heir apparent, and the second prince was conferred the title of a king. The second prince even took the initiative to ask for the title of virtuous. More than once, she expressed in public that her lifelong wish was to assist her elder sister. To be honest, the relationship between the two sisters was abnormal. It also made Fengzhen wonder if there was some conspiracy behind such a harmonious relationship between the royal family. Throughout history, were there any lack of quarrels between brothers and fratricidal strife? His Majesty only had 2 children. If one of them was killed, the other would be the next emperor. How could the two of them be indifferent to such a great temptation? The second prince protected the first prince in all ways, and the first prince pampered the second prince in all ways. Every time, she looked like she was saying, "You can say what's wrong with me, I can listen humbly and change seriously, but you can't say anything bad about my sister." The first prince had great self-restraint, but if anyone said anything bad about her sister, she would attack them without hesitation. As Fengzhen watched the situation unfold, he was a little worried that the imperial family was about to have a scandalous scandal. Until, the second prince had just come of age, but she had already taken away his cute youngest son, Fengyu. Fengzhen was finally relieved. Great, the second prince was still a man. She was not gay. Something didn't seem right. Qiguan Rang had the same feeling as Fengzhen. Fengzhen, the prodigal son, could be deceived by Fengyu for a while, but Qiguan Rang was very smart. He quickly realized that something was wrong with his son. On the day that he realized something was wrong, Qiguan Rang returned home with a gloomy face. He asked for the family discipline and openly waited for his unfilial son to come home. Qiguan Weisher was scared when she saw this. What happened to Ji? His eldest son and several daughters were all serving as officials elsewhere. The only one by his side was his youngest son, Qiguan Shi. Qiguan Rang's sudden anger must have something to do with his youngest son. This unfilial son. He had led the crown prince astray. Even 10,000 deaths would not be enough to atone for his crime. Qiguan Weisher was frightened by this situation. She thought that her son was involved in the rebellion. After waiting for an hour in fear, Qiguan Shi came back to see his old father with an ashen face. He was startled for a moment, then immediately understood something. The father and son went to the study and dismissed the servants. After confirming that there were no eavesdroppers, Qiguan Rang angrily reprimanded his son. Who instructed you to seduce the emperor? Qiguan Shi was speechless. Was it his fault that he was good-looking? Father, I don't understand. When did I seduce the emperor? Qiguan Rang felt that he needed some medicine. How dare you say that you didn't do anything about you and the first prince? Qiguan Shi said, the first prince is the emperor, and I am the subject. How can there be a subject who seduces the emperor? Qiguan Shi said calmly, Her Highness and I are devoted to each other. Although we are the emperor and the subject, I have never misled Her Highness into doing anything wrong. Qiguan Rang said, Her Highness is young. She doesn't know the depth of the matter. How can you not? Qiguan Shi was speechless. Her Highness was 3 years older than him. However, even if he reminded his father would have other excuses. He was probably a fake father. The atmosphere between the father and son was a little stiff. Qiguan Shi said hesitantly, Why can't I? Why not? Qiguan Shi said, Father taught me to be loyal to the emperor since I was young. I dare not forget for a moment. I have been reminding myself to put Her Highness first all these years. However, after Her Highness becomes an adult, she needs someone to serve her for the sake of having children. It is very dangerous for a woman to give birth. It is hard to guarantee that the royal father does not have the ambition to usurp the throne and replace her. Why should I let Her Highness worry about such things? Bear these risks? Qiguan Rang was a little confused. Speak slowly and let him digest it. What do you mean, Qiguan Shi said, I will be loyal to Her Highness all my life. Even if I have children with Her Highness, I will never have any disloyal thoughts of usurping the throne. After Her Highness inherits the throne, she will not have to worry about having children or being burdened by relatives. Won't she be able to focus on politics? Her son will let her have no worries. Father, you don't trust others, but can you not trust the son you have raised? You should trust your son even more. Wouldn't it be more reassuring to hand over the important task of protecting Her Highness to someone unfamiliar and let him, Qiguan Shi, do it himself? Qiguan Rang was speechless. This seemed to make sense. Bulsh *T. Loyal to the emperor, Qiguan Rang only wanted to beat his youngest son to death and make him back into the furnace. As expected, he should have had 2 more daughters back then. Sons and whatnot, they were born to piss him off. Qiguan Shi quibbled but was still beaten by his father. Fortunately, Qiguan Rang knew not to hit someone's face. Qiguan Shi's face was still fine. However, Jiang Lian had been thrown by her mother since she was young and had suffered all kinds of injuries. She could see the problem with Qiguan Shi at a glance. After asking, she found out that he had been beaten by his future father-in-law. How could this be? The next day, Jiang Lian secretly went to the manor to have a secret talk with Qiguan Rang. The content of this secret talk was completely different from what Qiguan Shi had imagined. Qiguan Rang, who valued women over men for decades, did not hide his worry for his son for the first time. Since Her Highness has come personally, I know that there is no turning back. I can only shamelessly ask for a promise from Your Highness. Jiang Lian was mentally prepared to be scolded or made things difficult for the old man. Qiguan Rang said, She has a good temperament, but no one can predict what will happen in the future. I shamelessly ask for a promise from Your Highness. No matter what happens in the future, as long as she doesn't commit treason, you can allow him to return to his hometown and retire if you dislike him. Jiang Lian said, You don't trust me? Qi Guanrang said, "This isn't a matter of trust. It's just a father's concern for his son." A married son was like spilled water. Qi Guanrang would not go and break up the couple. He dared to hit Qi Guanxi, but would he bear to hit eldest Prince Jiang Lian? The most important thing was that he was worried. Wei Ci was a good example to learn from. Although Wei Ci was still alive and kicking and had lived a peaceful life all these years, it was not easy to be an invisible husband. However, it wasn't easy to be this kind of invisible Di Fu. If he wasn't careful, he would become the target of public criticism. If Wei Ci had overstepped his boundaries, Qi Guanrang would not sit idly by and do nothing. He would find a way to get rid of him. Similarly, if Qi Guanxi had overstepped his boundaries, would the other officials not take action? Even the emperor could not guarantee that he would be able to protect anyone in the imperial court. Qi Guanrang did not expect Jiang Lian to protect Qi Guanxi. He only hoped that when something like this happened, Jiang Lian would give Qi Guanxi a way out and let him stay away from battles. Jiang Lian said, "All right, I agree. In addition, if Shi insists, I will warn his sisters and brothers to stay away from him," Qi Guanrang said calmly. "In the future, just treat him as an ordinary relative. As long as I'm here, I won't let the children have too much contact with Shi. Please tell Shi about this in detail, Your Highness. I thought about it all night and realized with some shame that I might have hurt this child back then by favoring women over boys. That's why he became biased. I only hope that he and Your Highness are sincere and not because of the pressure and obsession that I put on him." When Jiang Lian mentioned this to Qi Guanxi said seriously, "It's not obsession or pressure. I just can't imagine that someone will be closer to Your Highness than I am. I can't believe that someone else will love and admire you more than I do." He could not take the risk, so he hoped that he would be the one to protect her, so that she would not have to worry about anything and become a better person. The future emperor, who would go down in history, hoped that her descendants would praise and admire her when they mentioned her. This was the greatest achievement that Qi Guanxi could imagine. Jiang Lian smiled. "Yes, I know. Chapter 1876. Jiang Pengji would get used to it after a while. She treated it as a vacation. But, could they tell her before they crossed over? Could they talk about the landing spot? She closed her eyes and opened them again. She found herself in the locker room of a stranger. The door opened in the next second. It was even more awkward. Both inside and outside, a dozen men in their 20s and a red-haired woman in the locker room looked at each other. The atmosphere was a little strange. After a while, one of the extremely handsome men asked, "Who are you? How did you get into our locker room? Was he a fanatic fan or a thief? If you don't answer, we'll call for help." Jiang Pengji raised her eyebrows. The man's words seemed to be the official language of Jiang Dynasty's era. Did she cross over to the future of Jiang Dynasty's era? Jiang Pengji blinked and replied in an unpracticed language, "I don't know how I got here." The words came from the mouth of a foreign beauty with red hair, red eyes, a sexy body, and a cold temperament. It sounded more like a provocation. The man said to his companion, "Jingzi, call the police." The young man called Jingzi had dyed blonde hair. He was tall and healthy, and his muscles were strong. "Xiaoyang, should we call the police now?" "Yes." A strange foreign woman appearing in the locker room of the national team was reason enough to call the police. When Jiang Pengji heard their conversation, her expression cracked for a moment. "Jingzi? Xiaoyang? Yang Tao? Yanlin? What a coincidence." The two young men in jerseys had the same name as an old acquaintance. Jiang Pengji had lived a long life in that world, but she was too cruel to her body when she fought against the villain Tian Bao. She only lived for a few years after she abdicated her throne and returned to the Federation. She didn't know what happened to other people, but Yang Tao and Yan Lin had lived a long life. When she closed her eyes in that world, they were still full of energy and went swimming every winter to exercise. Jiang Pengji was glad that the old officials of Jiang dynasty had lived a long life, but at the same time, she was worried. None of them were easy to deal with. It was a lot of pressure for the young emperor. It had been more than 20 years since Jiang Pengji returned to the Federation. In other words, she hadn't heard the name of an old acquaintance for more than 20 years. When the two young men heard what she said, their expressions changed. "Who are you?" Jiang Pengji pointed at herself and smiled. "Me? My surname is Jiang." Jiang. The two young men looked at each other and fell into a mysterious silence. The other teammates asked what was going on, and the young man named Xiao Yang found a passable excuse to help Jiang Pengji out of her predicament. Jiang Pengji was brought to another resting room to wait. About half an hour later, she saw the two youths again. "I'm Yan Xiaoyang and he's Yang Zhengzi. It's been years since anyone called us Yan Lin or Yang Tao." The young man called Xiao Yang looked more refined. His hair was short and black, and he had a gentle temperament. He didn't look like someone who ran on the field at all. "Who were you before? Why did he suddenly appear here? You'd better not lie, or we'll really call the police." Jiang Pengji said, "My surname is Jiang Pengji." Once again, Yan Lin and Yang Tao fell into silence. The silent atmosphere was only broken when the three of them sat in the private room of the restaurant and served the dishes. "Are you really Emperor Jiang Chen? Jiang Pengji?" Jiang Pengji had basically confirmed their identities. "Shouldn't you call me Your Majesty?" Whether it was the first or the second time, Yang Tao and Yan Lin had become her subjects, so it was normal for them to call her Your Majesty. Yan Lin curled his lips. The Jiang dynasty died a long time ago. Yang Tao laughed and teased, "The Jiang dynasty is gone, but the royal family is still there. They're still emperors with a constitutional monarchy." As the ancestor of the royal family, Jiang Pengji was addressed respectfully as, "Your Majesty, OJ13K. Are you too, reincarnated or transmigrated or," Yan Lin said, "reincarnated or transmigrated? You know quite a lot." "I was born knowing. I guess it's like you forgot to drink Meng Po's soup after reincarnation." Compared to Yan Lin, Yang Tao was more friendly. He said, "What's going on, Your Majesty? Why did you suddenly appear in the team's locker room? You gave me a fright just now." Jiang Pengji said, "I don't know. I just came out of nowhere without any warning." Yang Tao asked again, "Then why are you dressed like this?" Jiang Pengji hid some details and said vaguely, "I look like this in this life." Yang Tao showed a trace of sympathy for her. He and Yan Lin were lucky. They reincarnated as neighbors, and they were even from respectable families in China. As the founding emperor of the Jiang dynasty, Jiang Pengji reincarnated as a foreigner. What kind of arrangement was that? In this era, there was no such thing as a monarch and a subject. The three of them were old friends who had known each other for decades, so they couldn't help but reminisce about the past. After a long conversation about their experiences in this life, Yang Tao and Yan Lin were completely stunned. "You're saying that after your reincarnation, you entered the interstellar era? Are there holographic games? Are there interstellar tours?" Yang Tao's heart ached when he heard that. Everyone was born knowing. Why was Jiang Pengji born into the interstellar era? Jiang Pengji scratched her head. "There are all of them, but I don't have time to enjoy them." Yang Tao was confused. Why? Could it be that her family was poor after her reincarnation? That couldn't be. Jiang Pengji was so arrogant. She could do well in any era, right? Yan Lin noticed that Jiang Pengji was dressed in a military style. Based on his shallow understanding of the military, Jiang Pengji did not look like a regular soldier. She was a marshal of the Federation. She was a marshal of the Federation. Yang Tao asked, "What's the rank of a marshal of the Federation?" Jiang Pengji rested her chin on her hand. "There are 10 armies under the marshal. Each army is responsible for the deployment and defense of the Federation's troops. Yang Tao was speechless. That was the end of their friendship. Everyone was born knowing, so why was she doing so well? Otherwise, that was why she was the emperor in her previous life instead of Yang Tao. Under Yang Tao's strong request, Jiang Pengji showed him her wrist AI and all kinds of cool functions. Yang Tao was envious. He slumped in his chair like a salted fish. Xiaoyang, I don't want to play football and conquer the world. I want to play holographic games and be an esports god. Yan Lin was speechless. Jiang Pengji was speechless. Speaking of which, she had no idea why Yan Lin and Yang Tao were playing football. Yan Lin said he wanted to be a swimmer, but he was poached by a football scout to be a soccer player. What about you? Yang Tao was a restless person. It was normal for him to run and jump around, but Yan Lin didn't look like he would like to play football. Yan Lin said, I'm the goalkeeper. As long as he was on the field, he would do his best to help Yang Tao defend the goal. Jiang Pengji was speechless. Yan Lin face-bombed. I was so stupid. I didn't want to inherit the family business. I had to play along with him. Wasn't it good to be a domineering CEO? He wore a suit every day, appeared in financial magazines, and took over a business empire that was worth billions. But he just couldn't control his own hands and feet. In his previous life, he had been Yang Tao's nanny for 50 or 60 years. In this life, he was his neighbor and had to clean up after him. Yan Lin suspected that he had been cursed. He had become a ghost. Even if he reincarnated, he wouldn't let go of his nanny. The only good thing was, Yang Tao had a sister in this life, and she was Yan Lin's girlfriend. Jiang Pengji couldn't help but say, they're not real brothers, but they're like real brothers. Yan Lin curled his lips. Forget it. I can't even bear to look at the word brothers. She didn't know what the kids in the future thought. They wrote about Yan Lin and Yang Tao every day. They were straight men. Yan Lin couldn't help but doubt his life. Was he that gay in his previous life? Luckily, he still liked Yang Tao's sister. That was for sure. Jiang Pengji was speechless. Yang Tao couldn't help but laugh. He took out his phone and searched for Jiang Pengji. Kids in this era are so funny. When Yang Tao was bored, he liked to read all kinds of novels from the Jiang dynasty. Looking at the familiar characters in the novels shouting themselves hoarse for love and saying, how can you be so heartless, so cold, and so unreasonable? For love, he could be happy for the whole day. It was simply a cure. The source of his happiness. Yan Lin suddenly said, I think they gave me too little homework. I should have written more essays back then. As one of the famous people of the Jiang dynasty, Yan Lin's writing was a regular in textbooks. He read and recited the whole text. If he had known that the future would be like this, he would have written more essays and memorized them to death. Jiang Pengji took Yang Tao's phone and flipped through his bookshelf. She was silent for a long time. Yang Tao had a very good habit. He liked to categorize things. He set up a bookshelf for each protagonist. There were more than 3,000 books on the bookshelf labeled Jiang Pengji. He's so bored. If it weren't for the fact that this body was so powerful that it could send Yang Tao to the cycle of reincarnation, she would have given him a good beating. They had been together for a lifetime. Why did he like to read novels with her as the protagonist? Did he really want to see her make a fool of herself? Yan Lin said, there's something even more idle. What is it? Yan Lin handed his phone to Jiang Pengji. A messaging app was opened, and there was a chat group named Jiang Chao Elderly Mutual Aid and Love Association for the Aged. A group of people were chatting away in the group. Jiang Pengji saw many familiar sock puppets. This is, as the name suggests, Jiang Pengji was speechless. Yan Lin took back his phone and sent a message. His Majesty is here. Everyone who was chatting in the group fell into a strange silence. Which Majesty? Could it be the current Empress? Yan Lin didn't answer. Wei Yong, your ancestor is here. Jiang Pengji looked at the group chat and fell into a long silence. You and a Prince Wei Zixuan, ancestor? Jiang Pengji? Did she really come? Yan Lin replied, genuine goods at fair prices. Honest to all. On this day, the Jiangchao Elderly Mutual Aid and Love Association for the Aged exploded. M. Chapter 1877. Jiang Pengji looked at the group chat and couldn't help but look at Yan Lin. The people in the group. Do you mean, they all forgot to drink Meng Po's soup? Yan Lin's face was solemn. If hell really exists and Meng Po's soup exists, then either Meng Po neglected her duty or she sold fake medicine. Zhengze and I were born knowing each other. We met when our families visited each other with our children. Coincidentally, I found out that there were so many people I knew. The others were either the same, or something triggered their memories and restored their past lives. Coincidences? Yan Lin said, people who passed away hundreds of years ago have returned to this world. It sounds like they were possessed and talking nonsense. Zhengze and I didn't want to be estranged from our parents in this life, so we tried our best to keep it a secret and pretend that we forgot to drink Meng Po's soup. Except for our memories, we are no different from ordinary people. But it's not easy to cover up our past lives. Sooner or later, we'll find out. You found out? Yan Lin couldn't help but look proud. He raised his eyebrows. No, we found someone else. Who? Yang Tao showed Jiang Pengji a photo. Your Majesty, can you guess who they are? Jiang Pengji took a closer look and saw a man and a woman in the photo. The man was tall and burly. According to the background of the photo, he was about 1.9 meters to 2 meters tall. He was as strong as a wall. Even though the man was wearing a well-tailored suit and leather shoes, the fierce look in his eyes made people think that he was a gangster. Beside the man stood a woman in a white strapless dress. Her makeup was exquisite. Looking at the woman's face, one sentence popped up in his mind: even a vixen who could bring disaster to a country and people couldn't be more beautiful. Jiang Pengji looked at the possessive man in the photo and was speechless. Are they Jianghu and Huijun? Yang Tao complimented. Your Majesty, you have a good eye. Fu Wang was the grandson of a military leader. He had risked his life for many meritorious deeds at a young age. Huijun was a freshman in the finance department of a university. Coincidentally, she was asked by a relative's director to play the second female lead. She vividly played the role of a beauty who brought disaster to the country and won the Best Supporting Actress award in one fell swoop. Fu Wang had his memories since he was young, while Huijun had only remembered it midway. It was a coincidence that they had met for the first time. A female star with a flirtatious appearance had a narrow career path. If she wasn't careful, it would be easy for her to attract criticism. At that time, Huijun faced the situation of being criticized by the entire internet. The female stars who were competing with her for resources were all trying to criticize her. Not long after, Huijun became a guest on a live-stream variety show and happened to bump into Fu Wang, who was acting as a guest instructor out of boredom. Fu Wang had smacked her against the wall in front of all the cameras and said, "I've fallen in love with you at first sight. I want to marry you." Huijun had scolded him for being shameless. Fu Wang, however, said, "Men don't need face to chase after their wives. Those who do need face are all single." Hence, the focus of this episode was on Fu Wang flirting with Huijun. After filming the variety show, the two went to get their marriage certificate. All the netizens? Yang Tao excitedly pulled out another photo. Your Majesty, guess who this is? Jiang Pengji took a closer look and realized that it was a short video. The scene was probably a lecture hall. A young and beautiful girl was proposing to a man. The man looked to be in his early 30s. He wore gold-rimmed glasses and had a mature aura. Judging from the background of the video, he should be a professor. The girl was his student. Jiang Pengji couldn't guess, but she could use the elimination method to guess blindly. Huayu and Jingxian? Yang Tao gave her a thumbs up. As expected of your majesty, you guessed correctly. Feng Jin, the old antique, insisted that he was much older than Wei Jingxian and that it was inappropriate. He forced the young lady to come to his school with her identity card and propose in front of hundreds of students. The scene was very lively. They had been married for a long time in their previous lives. Could Feng Huayu really tolerate his reincarnated wife marrying another man? I think it's pretentious. Jiang Pengji, no, she felt that he was enjoying it. Didn't she notice that the man in the video was smiling when he was proposed to? Yang Tao seemed to like this guessing game. He showed Jiang Pengji another video. In the video, the young man was hugging the safety rope and said that he was afraid of heights. He wouldn't jump down even if he was beaten to death. I still have to work on a defense plan. Big CEO, please be generous and spare a poor lawyer like me. The girl was a little older than the young man. If the young man was a fresh meat, the girl was a ripe peach. Every move she made was full of mature charm. It seemed that they were bungee jumping. Jiang Pengji couldn't figure it out. Who were they? Even Han Yu wasn't that timid. Yang Tao said, it's Han Wenbin and Mi Chu. They only remembered their previous lives after they got married. Jiang Pengji couldn't help but roll her eyes. She knew that Han Yu and Mi Chu were a married couple who didn't get married in the first place. They didn't look like a married couple at all. How did they end up together in this life? Yang Tao explained, Wenbin was a young lawyer who had just graduated not long ago. He helped someone in a lawsuit and won. Big Boss Mi took a fancy to him. Big Boss said, I can lose the lawsuit, but I have to sleep with this person. I want to sleep with him at first sight. TSK, Wenbin's face in this life is worse than in his previous life. Isn't it good to be in the entertainment circle? Why did he have to go down the road of no return? This was the story of a domineering female CEO who forced herself on a young lawyer. It originated from the lust in the court. If Han Yu went to the entertainment circle, he would probably be a sugar daddy's sugar daddy. Jiang Pengji put her hand on her forehead. Who else? Yang Tao pulled out a wedding photo from the album. Jiang Pengji recognized who they were at first sight. Han Mei and Wan Did they forget to drink Meng Po's soup? Or did they buy a batch of fake Meng Po's soup? Yang Tao smiled. Isn't it obvious? I can recognize them at first sight. Jiang Pengji was speechless. Lian's face was exactly the same as it was in her previous life. Only a blind man could not recognize him. In this life, Lian was born into a martial arts family. His ancestors had a deep relationship with the Xia family of the Jiang dynasty. When he met Shangguan Wan, she was still a 15-year-old high school student. She held it in until she was an adult before getting married. On the day of their wedding, Lian smiled like a fool. It was a waste of his peerless face that could make him work in the entertainment circle. Yang Tao had a lot of photos in his phone. Yang Jingrong is lucky in this life. He's the son of a coal boss. He has nothing else but money. As the son of a coal boss, Yang Si should be happy to see a rich second generation who cheats his father and flaunts his wealth. But, he had become a live stream host. His hobby had not changed even in his previous life. It was the same in her previous life. He went south in his 60s just to eat oysters. Jiang Pengji was speechless. Shameful. It was so shameful. Where's Nongqin? Yang Tao said, Yang Jingrong was forced by his family to go on a blind date after he turned 30. She met General Jiang during the blind date. They were not going on a blind date with each other. Jiang Pengji was speechless. Yang Tao took out other photos and rambled on for a long time. There were dozens of people in the Jiang Dynasty Elderly Mutual Aid and Love Pension Association. Almost everyone in the Jiang Dynasty's generation was captured in one fell swoop. Jiang Pengji deeply sympathized with the current Jiang royal family. A bunch of old fellows from the same generation as their ancestors crawled back from the underworld unwillingly. How tired was that? She could not deal with them. She could only coax them like an ancestor. What did I see just now? Is it Wei Qiong? Yang Tao laughed. Wei Qiong is the prince of the current Jiang royal family. He's your descendant. There's also your old enemy Niao Yang, Nie Guangshan. He's currently teaching at Tianhua University. By the way, there's someone in the group that you must get to know. I think Her Majesty will be very interested in him. Who? Yang Tao sent a message in the group. Doting wife Professor Lu Shi, the one who bombed the tomb, come out and get beaten up. Dozens of members in the group copied the message. Jiang Pengji was speechless. What did Lu Shi do? Yang Tao said, he bombed your imperial tomb. Jiang Pengji was speechless. Yang Tao said, Your Majesty, I'm afraid you don't know that your imperial tomb is a 5-star tourist attraction in the country. We go there every year when we gather. Other gatherings usually went somewhere to sightsee, but they formed a group to visit Jiang Pengji's imperial tomb. They reminisced about the past and watched Her Majesty and a certain strange male corpse. Jiang Pengji was speechless. For all, these officials were all F***king fake. Yang Tao introduced the group of people and said regretfully, it's a pity that Zixiao and Wenjing haven't been found. Jiang Pengji snorted. Now it was her turn to show off. Jiang Pengji used the cool AI to play 2 stereoscopic projection videos. A young man with semi-long hair was bending over the table and drawing. He seemed to have noticed the gaze of the person who was secretly filming. He turned his head with a smile. Peng peng. Yang Tao was speechless. Could this be Wei Zixiao? Jiang Pengji switched to another video. This time, the main character was a cold-looking young man. The style of his military uniform was the same as the one Jiang Pengji was wearing. Marshal, this is the document that was delivered today. Please approve it as soon as possible. Yang Tao looked at the unfamiliar face of the young man. He was a little confused. This was, Jiang Pengji said, Wenjing. Yang Tao was speechless. After a while, he broke down and said, forget about Wei Zixiao, why can Qiguan Wenjing also reincarnate into the interstellar era? Jiang Pengji even showed Yang Tao the video of her family. She and Wei Ci stood in the middle. Her eldest daughter, Jiang Yan, stood on the right, and her son, Wei Tsong, stood on the left. The chubby girl, Jiang Lian, happily rode on her father's neck. She smiled and showed her bare gums. Wei Ci could only smile bitterly. He grabbed her feet with one hand and supported her back with the other. Jiang Pengji's transmigration lasted for 3 days. When she saw her old friends in this life, she let go of all her burdens, sang loudly, and had a party. All the regrets of her previous life and this life were released in a party. When Jiang Pengji woke up, she returned to the familiar world. Only the images stored in the AI told her that the few days she experienced were not a dream. Jiang Pengji wiped her face and sent a message to Wei Ci. Wei Ci had just finished class. The students had not left. Zixiao, I miss you. Wei Ci blushed when he heard that. The students are still here. Jiang Pengji said, I know, but I miss you. Wei Ci said, I'll get off work and go home in a while. Jiang Pengji said, I know, but I want to hear you say that you miss me too. Wei Ci could only say, yes, I've been thinking about you. The students were speechless. A few hours later, the 2 topics were trending. Hashtag what did we do wrong? Why does Marshall feed us dog food every few days? Hashtag the federal conspiracy to urge marriage. Hashtag. Chapter 1878. Other people retired and raised their grandchildren to dance in the square. Pei Yi retired and spent money to raise paper dolls. Before spending money, rubbish game, I don't even care about spending money. After spending money, so good. Not only can I spend money, but I can also work. Raising paper dolls can cultivate one's character and enrich one's boring life after retirement. Not only can they have feelings, but they can also. P.S. The new book is fat and ready to be slaughtered. P.S. The new book will be released on March 1st. I'll need everyone's monthly support then. Thanks, Omega. The following was the first chapter of the new book. The room was simply furnished and dark. Only the screen in the study flickered with a faint blue light. Occasionally, one could hear the beeping sound of a message notification. At that moment, light footsteps came from the kitchen and a figure gradually became clear. Beep beep beep, the message notification sounded again. That person took a step and appeared in the study like a wisp of green smoke. She was so fast that she left behind a series of afterimages. She took a sip of her freshly brewed instant drink and placed the panda mug on the study table. Her fingers slid across the virtual screen. Pei Yi, are you there? Are you there, Pei Yi? Grandma Pei, this is an urgent matter. Don't play dead. Grandpa Pei, I'll call you Grandpa, okay? Reply when you see this message or I'll hack your AI. Pei Yi, come out, Pei Yi. I know you're online. Don't hide behind the screen and keep quiet. I know you're peeping. The time at the bottom right corner was ticking by the second. Pei Yi read through her increasingly agitated friend's message. Her expression was as calm as still water. Her friend begged her grandfather and grandmother to compromise in despair. There were more than 200 messages in a row. Pei Yi skipped over the useless chatter in the middle and went straight to the last few messages. Grandma Pei, you're so calm. I admit defeat. I'm impressed. Her friend's attitude gradually softened. I have something to ask of you. Aren't you very free recently? Help me take care of a child. Everything can be discussed after it's done. It's not convenient for outsiders to know about this child's existence. After thinking about it, I can only ask you to take care of it. I know you don't know how to take care of children, so I specially designed an idiot-style nurturing app for the little guy. You just have to take care of him, it's completely effortless. I still have something to do, talk to you later. Friend XXX has sent you a document offline, please check it. His actions were swift, as if he was selling a hot potato. Pei Yi stared at these words and hesitated for a while. In the end, he still chose to accept it. Her posture changed from a proper sitting posture to a lazy and decadent reclining posture. She crossed her long legs and leaned against the corner of the desk, humming a popular local folk song. Downloading, installing, and opening the app. It was done in one go. A second later, the intelligence system's screen turned black with a pause sound, slowly revealing a gorgeous pink sea of stars. The sea of stars moved closer to the center of the AI screen, forming a pink vortex. Not long after, the pink vortex condensed into a cute pink heart that simulated 3 heartbeats. What's the point of designing such a flashy app for? As he spoke, the hearts suddenly exploded, turning into flowing pink light that converged into 4 big words. Love and raising children, Pei Yi. Not only was the design flashy, but it was also plagiarized. Playing this kind of game would lower one's style. She casually took the snacks piled up in the corner of the study, tore open the biodegradable paper packaging, and took out potato chips to eat. As she waited, the long scene animation finally ended, and an even more flashy logo popped up. It was clearly an app that was privately made. The creator even designed a series of disclaimers for this app, requiring Pei Yi to sign the disclaimer before she could enter the game. She casually glanced at it and realized that these disclaimers were quite retarded. This game is a game that combines love and raising children. First, Zai Zai's growth is completely controlled by the player. If Zai Zai is retarded, please do not be angry. Reflect on yourself 3 times a day, find problems from yourself, and reject domestic violence. Zai Zai's growth requires the player's full participation, so please treat it seriously. Do not be lazy. Second, Zai Zai's emotions are very sensitive, please pay attention to the changes in its mood. Third, Zai Zai has made a mistake, please focus on guidance and do not use vulgarities. Fourth, once this game is activated, it will be bound for life and cannot be destroyed or discarded. Lastly, Heavenly Brain reserves the right to explain everything. Hit me if you're unhappy. Pei Yi was speechless. She wanted to buy a ticket to the central planet right now and destroy that guy's nest. Why did he have to be coquettish in front of her? Pei Yi did not look at these retarded terms in detail. She clicked agree at the end, signed her name according to the procedure, and bound the account. As the melodious background music played, the game finally began. Pei Yi casually clicked, skipping the boring tutorial for new players. Compared to the fancy animation and logo, the game interface was surprisingly simple. The screen showed a simple room. The four walls were all grayish-white, a closed frosted window, a closed door, a wooden table, a wooden stool, and a fancy egg on the wooden stool. There was nothing else. The egg was really fancy, with a rough count of more than 20 colors, as messy as a child's doodle. She poked the egg, and a name box popped up on the screen. Please name Zai Zai or your lover. Since it's called Zai Zai, let's call it Zai Zai. This game's setting really made her speechless. She was not a paper lover, so there was no way she would treat the paper people in the app as her partner, let alone her lover. Raising a child and a lover, wasn't it the same as raising a child and selling it? Too heavy. Underscore, smiley face angle, underscore, naming successful. After the system notification ended, two small words appeared on the head of the egg, Zai Zai. Pei Yi explored the functions of the various buttons, and the system prompted her to choose an ID for the account. After thinking for a moment, your Abba was born. If the egg was equipped with a title, the small words on the head would become, your Abba's Zai Zai. She poked at the various icons while studying the meaning of them. How dare they make such a simple game? It won't even make a splash on the market. Ever since Pei Yi retired from the Federal Army, she had been addicted to games. She had dabbled in action, adventure, simulation, role-playing, and casual games. Among them, she mainly played popular pay-to-win games. She had also played a few adult games, but after playing for a while, she got the hang of it and gave up. Based on her judgment, this adult app was too simple. She really couldn't summon the urge to spend money. How do I upgrade this thing? After exploring for a while, Pei Yi found a progress bar called Merit on the egg. Merit was equivalent to experience in ordinary games. There was no way to spend money at the moment, so she could only rely on her hard work. According to the growth routine, this should be the time to release $1 purchase or $6 free SR skin to scam people into spending money. There was 1 and 6. Gradually, there would be 98, 188, 348, and 648. Underscore, smiley face angle, underscore even Pei Yi had been tricked into spending tens of thousands by the game's merchants. Adult games relied on either spending money or hard work. Games that required both spending money and hard work were shameless. She had nothing now, but she had a lot of free time. She was full of hard work, so it wasn't worth it to spend money. How much merit does it need to break out of the shell? 100, 1,000 merit? That doesn't seem to be much. Pei Yi poked around and found an important clue in the novice guide that she had just skipped. She quickly pulled out the novice guide to take a closer look. A piece of parchment was rolled up in the middle of the screen. The words at the front were still clear, but the back was stained by ink and was intermittent. Hundreds of thousands of years ago, the spiritual energy of heaven and earth was abundant. Although immortals, humans, demons, and demons had conflicts, the overall situation was considered peaceful. There was a vast continent in the human world. There were hundreds of countries on the continent. There was a small country with a population of less than 1 million. It was called Tanchang. The ink at the end of the two sentences covered several lines of words. Years later, the Empress of Tanchang gave birth. She was named Su. After that, there was another patch of ink. Pei Yi could barely see a few words. Connecting the context, it should be that something had happened to this prince named Su. She guessed that Tanchong had been destroyed by someone. After the country was destroyed, Su darkened and did something that angered the heavens and people. In the end, the heavenly Tao was furious and cast a curse. Unless Su cleared the countless negative karma on her, she would never be able to be free. In the end, Su's soul turned into this egg. Players needed to hatch the egg and accompany Su to earn merit and luck to help Su wake up. Pei Yi only had one thought after reading it: what a shoddy game background. It was a lousy setting. She could find a bunch of similar free materials at any time. After understanding the game background of the egg, Pei Yi began to study how to earn merit by clearing dungeons. Although her friend was a scammer, since she had agreed to help it raise the egg, she would raise it. She had nothing to do anyway. There was no difference between being addicted to online games and games. It could kill time. The dungeon entrance was very easy to find. There was a flashy skull button on the top right corner of the screen. The word dungeon was written on it. She clicked on it and a long roll of parchment appeared on the screen. The parchment was a little old, and the corners were a little yellowish brown. Apart from the first dungeon that was lit up, the others were locked. They were gray and could not be opened. She could only click on the dungeon introduction at the top. She almost went blind when she saw it. Why did a 70-year-old woman die tragically on the streets? Why did hundreds of sows scream every night? Why did the condoms in the convenience store get stolen? Why did the underwear in the girls' dormitory get stolen? What was the hidden reason behind the theft of the dormitory bedsheets? Who was behind the flowery youth's anus? Behind all of this, was it the distortion of human nature or the degeneration of morals? Please pay attention to this dungeon channel. Let your Abba lead us into the hearts of demons and ghosts to explore the unknown world. Curiosity made her click on it. Her survival instinct made her want to close the interface. What kind of lousy thing is this? For all, for all, for all, for all, for all. Pei Yi felt like her IQ was being rubbed against the ground by her friend. She wanted to uninstall the game, but this lousy game was toxic. The interface actually froze at this moment. She even swiped to enter dungeon. There's such a thing? She didn't believe that her AI would even freeze when running the app, unless someone was secretly playing tricks. For example, the creator of this app. Pei Yi locked onto the suspect, and several notifications popped up on the screen. Prepare to enter dungeon. Player, please get ready. Countdown, 3, countdown, 2, countdown, 1, enter dungeon. Have fun. The melodious sound of the game rang. Before Pei Yi could react, her vision suddenly turned black, and she lost consciousness. Before she lost consciousness, she vaguely heard her friend's mocking laughter. All interpretation rights belong to Heavenly Brain. Hit me if you're not convinced. You're tuning into the Biyao's Wuxia Chronicles YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.